on a dark and windy night. Could you reject a male fox spirit who wants to possess you by force? The girl screams endlessly in her dream. She recalls that since she was 10, she has been having recurring nightmares of a fox eating her heart. It has gotten worse recently, as if the nightmare will strike the moment she closes her eyes. Because of this dream, her sleep quality is very poor, so she has no choice but to visit the temple where adults often go for fortune-telling. Confused, she doesn't understand the fortune-teller's words about a 1,000-year fox tribulation. The fortune-teller, mentioning a debt of gratitude, yells that this is a 1,000-year fox tribulation. It could be fatal. At the same time, the fortune-teller takes out a bracelet she claims is an ancestral divine bracelet and introduces its value and effects. How utterly ridiculous. To the girl, it's just a common jade bracelet you could find anywhere on the street. The girl gets up to leave. The fortune-teller tries hard to keep her, wanting to sell it at a lower price. She scares the girl, saying she might still be entangled by evil, and then no one will be able to save her. But to the girl, this is all just fear-mongering. The fortune-teller is still not willing to give up, so she lowers the price again to persuade the girl. The girl looks at the fortune-teller, who is only trying to scam her for money. She slams her hand on the table with a loud smack, proclaiming she isn't afraid of any of it. If it dares to come, she'll skin it alive. After saying this, she prepares to turn and leave. The school organizes an overnight trip. The girl, who hasn't slept well because of her nightmares, gives a big stretch. Just then, she hears her companion calling from the side. The bonfire party over there has already started, and she's here to ask the girl to join. It turns out the girl's name is Xiaoying. Her companion almost falls from running too fast. Xiaoying quickly grabs her, telling her to be careful and not run so fast. While her companion feels grateful, someone nearby anxiously calls their names. The game has already started. Xiaoying tries to refuse, saying she's not good at games, but she is dragged along anyway. Everyone eagerly asks Qiying if she has a boy she likes and what type he would be. Xiaoying says she doesn't like anyone and asks for a different question. She wants to switch from truth, claiming she's not good at it, to dare, where she can just do whatever is asked. Just then, a female classmate takes out her phone, opens a group chat, and wants to challenge Qiying. The chat history on the phone shows that less than 2 leave from the campsite. There's a mysterious place that has been sealed off. Everyone starts discussing it, with differing opinions. Some students worry it might be dangerous. The girl who proposed the dare has a cheerful look on her face, saying she heard the place is a bit spooky. She starts to question Qiying's courage. Okay, let's do this one. Unexpectedly, Qiying agrees readily. While the classmates are still in shock, Qiying has already left. Everyone looks at Qiying in disbelief. Unknowingly, Qiying walks past a sign that reads restricted area. Qiying is attracted by the roadside scenery and starts taking pictures casually. Qiying has such courage precisely because she started having nightmares about the fox at age 10. She even took up Taekwondo for self-defense. Even the ghosts in a haunted house would have to give way to her. She checks the time. It's almost 12 o'clock. Just then, she seems to hear a sound and can't help but look back. What was that sound just now? Qiying can't believe her ears. Just then, another louder sound is heard. Meanwhile, the camping classmates are getting ready to rest. At this moment, the girl who proposed the dare takes out her phone and anxiously sends a message, asking her companion for news about Qiying. Xiaosun receives the message and comes over to comfort the girl. He says that Qiying sent him photos and is having a great time. He then hands his phone to the girl to show her the message Qiying sent, telling the girl not to worry. The girl feels something is wrong because that reply was from half an hour ago. There has been no news from her for the past half hour. Over here, Qiying seems a bit lost. The moon is gone, and so is her phone signal. She can't help but complain in her heart, what a lousy place. Her expression becomes a little worried. She thinks to herself, I can't be this unlucky, can I? To run into something. Just then, something suddenly darts out with a whoosh. Qiying is startled and yells, holy crap, what was that? Still shaken from the scare, she discovers it was just a mouse. But why now of all times? She thinks of the words of that scamming fortune teller. She clenches her fists, thinking that if that wretched fox dares to appear before her, she'll skin it and make it a specimen. Just then, she seems to step on something. It feels soft. Qiying shines her phone's light on it for a closer look and instantly gets goosebumps. Isn't this a foxtail? Could this be the fox demon? At the same time, a charmingly sinister voice sounds in her ear. Whose skin are you going to make into a specimen? Without a second thought, Qiying throws a fierce punch, trying to send this guy away. But it seems to have no effect on this fox demon. Qiying's arm is grabbed firmly. She then notices this guy has 8 tails. Could this be an 8-tailed demon fox? Startled, Qiying slightly regrets not listening to the fortune teller. but a wise person knows when to retreat. Chi bites down hard on his tail with all her might. Of the 36 stratagems, fleeing is the best. She musters all her strength to escape. But Chi is too naive because it's completely useless. In a flash, she is pulled into the fox demon's arms again. An angry Chi yells at the fox demon to get it over with and stop dawdling. The fox demon suddenly sees what Chi is wearing on her hand and seems to understand something. And so, the tone suddenly changes. He gently takes Chi-Yin's wrist, saying he has been misunderstood. Chi-Yin is confused. The fox demon smiles charmingly and says that the person who found his ninth tail is his benefactor. It turns out Chi-Yin broke the fox demon's seal. So, the severed tail transformed into a bracelet locked onto Chi-Yin's hand. Chi-Yin feels like dying. She didn't find the tail at all. But the fox demon doesn't care what she's saying. He moves closer, holding her hand, wanting to repay his debt of gratitude with all his heart. Chi-Yin is really getting impatient and can't hear a word the fox demon is saying. Just as she's trying to get rid of the fox demon, she hears her companions calling in the distance. She hears clearly that it's Xiao Sun and the others coming to find her. At the same time, before she can react, the fox demon has already fled. Xiao Sun finds Chi-Yin and anxiously asks her, since it's so late, if she encountered any danger. As they prepare to leave, Chi-Yin realizes that the fox is long gone. At this moment, a man who calls him Brother Ran appears from behind, having seemingly witnessed everything that just happened. The man continues to ask Brother Ran what he plans to do next. Brother Ran knows clearly that to truly regain his freedom, he must get his tail back so all his power can return to its rightful owner. The man also advises Brother Ran to change into modern clothes. First, he needs to familiarize himself with the surroundings. Just then, a car stops beside Brother Ran, offering him a ride. He understands. This is the modern mode of transportation Shiryu mentioned. When the driver hears his request to just drive around, he glances back in confusion. Brother Ran already has a clear plan in his mind. First, get familiar with the environment. Then, find the woman with the bracelet. Seeing the situation, the driver gets a malicious idea. He turns from the main road onto a small path. It turns out the driver wants to extort money. Brother Ran understands he's encountered scum. He says he's penniless. The driver isn't satisfied. Seeing that Brother Ran is good-looking, he gets lecherous thoughts. Brother Ran gives a slight smile. The driver is still lost in his fantasies, completely unaware of what's about to happen. Suddenly, Brother Ran leans forward, threatening to send the driver to hell for some fun. The driver is scared half to death on the spot. In a flash, the driver is already kneeling behind Brother Ran, begging for mercy. Although legend says the nine-tailed demon fox is capable of all evil, Brother Ran knows he has important business to attend to right now. The driver kneels on the ground, flattering him endlessly just so Brother Ran will spare him. At this point, the driver is completely subservient. Meanwhile, Chi-Yin is concentrating on a puzzle, but finds a piece is missing. She looks down at the bracelet on her hand. She can't take it off no matter what. Feeling uneasy in her desperation, she finds a small knife. Chi-Yin raises the small knife. It turns out she wants to cut it off directly. Just then, Chi-Yin feels her hand being grabbed firmly. The fox demon's voice sounds in her ear. The bracelet can't be cut. You might as well aim for your own heart. Chi-Yin is scared and yells, "Don't." At this moment, the teacher is standing grimly at the podium. It was just a dream. Chi-Yin uses the excuse of not feeling well and sheepishly walks out of the classroom. She raises her hand and sees the bracelet again. She remembers her period also came early. She feels like nothing is going right. Looking at the irremovable fox fur bracelet, Chi-Yin starts to feel suspicious. At this moment, she thinks of the fortune teller's words again. She thinks of the divine bracelet the fortune teller was selling. The scenes replay in her mind. Chi-Yin starts to waver. The next day, Chi-Yin prepares to climb over the wall to go out and buy the fortune teller's bracelet, because she doesn't know what else will happen if she just sits and waits for her doom. At this moment, Chi-Yin is struggling and is just about to get over the wall. However, a voice reaches her ears. She turns around and finds it's that fox demon again, sitting in a tree in normal clothes. Distracted for a moment, Chi-Yin almost falls off the wall. The fox demon sees this and uses his tail to save his so-called benefactor. Then he says with a smile that he changed his clothes specifically. He was about to look for her in her classroom, but found she wasn't there. Chi-Yin looks down and only then realizes how high up she is. So she demands the fox demon put her down. The fox demon thinks Chi-Yin is scared and comforts her, saying that with him here, there's no danger. Chi-Yin impatiently demands that he unlock the bracelet for her. But of course, the fox demon won't agree. The fox demon asks Chi-Yin what wish she has so he can fulfill it. As repayment, Chi-Yin looks blank. It turns out the fox demon wants to grant any wish of his benefactor. After fulfilling it, he can leave in peace. The fox demon lifts Chi-Yin's chin with his finger and asks her seriously about her wish. Chi-Yin seriously thinks about the wish buried deep in her heart. Unexpectedly, her wish is actually to ask the fox demon to buy her a pack of menstrual pads. The fox demon ponders what on earth a menstrual pad is, because since coming to the modern era, sure you never told him about it. Chi-Yin, in urgent need, points into the distance and tells him that the convenience store at the left turn of the intersection on the right sells them. The fox demon suddenly leans in close. Chi-Yin is a bit stunned. The fox demon agrees to go get it for his benefactor. Before leaving, he even reminds his benefactor not to move and that he'll be back soon. Seeing that he has gone far, Chi-Yin thinks about the scene just now. She doesn't understand why her mind just went completely blank. But then she suddenly remembers the scene from her dream, which brings her back to her senses. She can't be fooled by the fox demon's appearance. Chi-Yin struggles for a long time to climb down from such a high tree. She dusts herself off, planning to buy that bracelet before he gets back. Meanwhile, the fox demon is on his way to the convenience store. He really can't figure out what a menstrual pad is. Is it like a rare treasure that royalty and nobles scramble to possess? When he arrives at the convenience store, he discovers it's such an unimpressive little place. The clerk warmly asks what he needs. To the clerk's surprise, what he needs is actually menstrual pads. Over here, Chi-Yin goes to find the fortune teller, but the fortune teller says she has already missed the best time. Chi-Yin quickly apologizes and asks again about the so-called ancestral divine bracelet. The fortune teller acts mysterious, saying helplessly that the bracelet has already been reserved. It's not hard to imagine that the fortune teller just wants to sell it at a higher price. She claims that today, the previous price is no longer comparable and guarantees that for a price of $6,988, the evil fox will disappear immediately. As one can imagine, Chi-Yin would absolutely not believe such nonsense and the sky-high price for the bracelet. Meanwhile, in the convenience store, the clerk has already placed a large pile of menstrual pads on the counter. The fox demon is not only confused, but also shocked. The clerk, with a smile, proceeds to ask which kind he needs. The fox demon is even more bewildered. He didn't expect this thing to be divided into day and night use. The clerk then asks with an infatuated look if he's buying sanitary products for his girlfriend. The fox demon seems to understand something, though not completely. The clerk is still fawning over him. The fox demon thinks to himself, this benefactor really knows how to joke with him. Chi-Yin walks back dejectedly, feeling angry about the fortune teller scam just now. Indignant, she wants to call the complaint hotline to report the fortune teller. But she suddenly thinks of the fortune teller's words and still worries that the fox demon will keep following her. She laments that her years of Taekwondo training are utterly useless. She thinks that if her friend, Old One, found out, he would definitely laugh at her again. Thinking that Old One has been on a business trip for several months, she takes out her phone to check his social media feed, but there's nothing. Thinking about being laughed at by her friend, Chi-Yin secretly resolves to muster her courage. She arrives at her classroom and finds her classmates voting for the class president. What's going on? The person elected class president is actually Ayn Rand. It's that fox demon. In front of her, a female classmate is talking to Ayn Rand with an infatuated look. Chi-Yin is completely shocked. Lulu pops up out of nowhere and greets Chi-Yin. Chi-Yin asks Lulu in disbelief why Ayn Rand is in their class and why he was elected class president. Lulu is explaining as Chi-Yin tries to say something. Just then, Ayn Rand interrupts her, saying that Xiaoying is not feeling well today due to her period and is still in some discomfort. Lulu, standing to the side, shows a look of disbelief because she didn't even know Xiaoying was on her period. Chi-Yin feels that Ayn Rand must have bewitched the entire class to achieve this. At the same time, Ayn Rand unwraps a blueberry-flavored lollipop he just bought at the convenience store and holds it to Chi-Yin's mouth. Chi-Yin is stunned because she can't figure out how Ayn Rand knew her favorite flavor. Chi-Yin waves her hand, rejecting the offering from Ayn Rand, and using her period as an excuse. She tells Ayn Rand to sit far away from her. Ayn Rand understands that these things don't seem to affect Chi-Yin at all, because everyone is on Ayn Rand's side, only he can't control her. He still knows he needs to find a way to get the bracelet first and not be hasty. So he asks with a smile where Chi-in is going and casually calls her Xiaoing. Chi-in coldly states that where she's going is none of his business. Of course, she also doesn't like Ayn Rand calling her that. Ayn Rand tactfully agrees and doesn't press further. Chi-in seems to have seen through Ayn Rand's cunning tricks. Meanwhile, a hint of sinister conspiracy flashes across Ayn Rand's face. Naturally, he plans to eat Chi-in's heart first after he gets his tail back and his powers are restored. In the infirmary, Chi-in clutches the blanket tightly. It turns out she's having that dream again, muttering restlessly in her sleep. Ayn Rand is watching over her from the side, but he doesn't understand why Chi-in dislikes him so much. Not understanding where the problem lies, he looks at Chi-in curled up on the bed. Just then, Lulu walks to the door and asks with concern about Chi-in's condition. Ayn Rand replies, looking at her, she's so uncomfortable she started talking nonsense. So, considering that Chi-in doesn't like Ayn Rand, Lulu asks Ayn Rand to go back and let her take care of her. But Ayn Rand proudly mentions that Chi-in asked him to buy her menstrual pads. Lulu blushes, finding it hard to believe. Since their relationship is so good, Lulu offers the medicine and volunteers Ayn Rand to take care of Chi-in. After giving Ayn Rand instructions, Lulu leaves. Lulu closes the door and hides behind it, still racking her brains trying to figure out what's going on. Ayn Rand gently strokes Chi-in's face with his tail. He thinks to himself, she was so arrogant just now, but isn't she still just a weak woman? Ayn Rand reminds Chi-in to take her medicine, but hears her muttering to herself. At this moment, Chi-in's eyes flutter open. She sits up and finds Ayn Rand by her side again. She blocks Ayn Rand's exposed tail with her hand, telling him to hide it so others won't see. Ayn Rand knows in his heart that only his benefactor can see it. He holds the medicine, wanting his benefactor to drink it first. Chi-in is ungrateful, afraid that Ayn Rand has poisoned it. Ayn Rand is willing to take a sip first, to prove his innocence. Chi-in's imagination runs wild, thinking she's like Wu Dalong being framed. Then she imagines she's Wu Song and instantly sobers up. She sees that the bowl holding the medicine is one Lulu used for her before, so she knows Lulu brought it. Although she's been found out, and it was Ayn Rand who was taking care of Chi-in all along, she is still ungrateful. Chi-in feels a sharp pain in her stomach and decides to just drink the medicine first. Outside the infirmary, Lulu is curious to know what they are talking about so intimately, but she's too far away to hear clearly. Lulu is squatting at the door, peeking. Xiao Sun comes over and sees her, curiously asking why she isn't inside. After finishing the medicine, Chi-in turns over and tells Ayn Rand to leave. Xiao Sun walks inside and asks curiously, is this that Ayn Rand who suddenly appeared at school? Chi-in is startled by the voice, thinking that besides herself, Xiao Sun feels the same way. Meeting for the first time, Xiao Sun politely greets Ayn Rand. Seeing Xiao Sun, Chi-in realizes something and then asks him if the data he was compiling is ready. She then sends Ayn Rand away so she can talk to Xiao Sun. Ayn Rand doesn't linger and gets up to leave immediately. The two brush past each other. Ayn Rand feels in his heart that he will get to know this person, Xiao Sun, very soon. Chi-in also curiously asks Xiao Sun if this is really his first time meeting Ayn Rand. Xiao Sun also feels that although it's their first meeting, he suddenly feels like he's known him for a long time. But looking at Chi-in, is she asking me for help? What happened? Before Chi-in can speak, he reaches out and strokes Chi-in's head. Don't worry, I'm on your side. This instantly makes Chi-in explode, complaining that his hand messed up her hair. As soon as Xiao Sun comes out, he sees Lulu eavesdropping at the door. Lulu tries to flee, but is pulled back by Xiao Sun. Xiao Sun wants to know what Chi-in is most afraid of, but Lulu immediately denies knowing. Then he asks again, what is Chi-in most afraid of? Or does she know her weakness? The school bell rings for dismissal. Chi-in slings her bag over her shoulder and says goodbye to Lulu. Lulu's heart immediately becomes uneasy. Could it be that she knows I have a big mouth? Chi-in is thinking that the wretched fox has actually left the school. Even Xiao Sun was almost bewitched. While the fox isn't following her, she immediately goes to the blacksmith shop, calling for someone. The owner hears Chi-in's call. Chi-in holds out her hand, saying she wants to get this bracelet off. As long as it's not cutting off her hand, anything else is fine. The owner rubs his hands, excited. How hard can it be to remove a bracelet? Looking at the dazzling array of saws makes her nervous. A hammer comes smashing down directly. A short while later, Chi-in walks out. She recalls the owner's words just now. No matter what tool he used, he couldn't open the bracelet. The material of the bracelet is not ordinary. Only then does she realize the bracelet's specialty. Looking ahead, there seems to be a person lying there. She looks at the man in front of her. Why is he at my doorstep? Suddenly, Ain Rand's eyes open. Blood is trickling from the corner of his mouth. One hand is holding his other arm as he calls Chi Ain benefactor. 5 hours earlier, Ain Rand thought to himself that he wouldn't use this trick on his benefactor unless absolutely necessary. The sales lady next to him is clearly bewitched by Ain Rand, looking at him with a captivated expression. He then asks her to pour him a cup of tea, lamenting how difficult Chi Ain is to deal with. He recalls Lulu's words. Chi Ain has a sharp tongue, but a soft heart. She responds to soft tactics, not hard ones. And when it comes to small animals, Chi Ain is even warmer. After hearing these words, Ain Rand turns and leaves. Lulu still wants to call him back. Afterwards, he walks alone down the street. Shiryu is behind him, explaining the modern era. He needs to adapt to modern life and habits. Look at me. I'm thriving with my cute appearance. But this is all thanks to Ain Rand's help. Shiryu gives a thumbs up, saying that if he needs any help in the future, just ask. After hearing Shiryu's words, he starts to think that I put in effort to adapt to short hair. But how can I compare to others? While Chi Ain is at the blacksmith hammering the bracelet, Ain Rand feels his heart beating. He can sense the bracelet more clearly. Someone nearby is shouting about how good their bread is fresh strawberry jam bread. Ain Rand stops upon hearing strawberry jam. Back to 5 hours later, Ain Rand calls out benefactor, and after calling out, his head tilts and he faints. Seeing his condition, Chi Ain immediately supports the collapsing Ain Rand, calling his name. However, Ain Rand is secretly delighted. Chi Ain continues to show concern for him. He presses his chest and says pitifully that his heart feels like it's being smashed by many tools. She recalls that the bracelet wasn't damaged just now, but he doesn't look like he's faking it. Her heart softens again. She prepares to help Ain Rand up and take him to the hospital. He seizes the opportunity to grab Chi Yin's hand, saying he's not human, so going to the hospital is useless, and he's in pain all over. Looking at the wretched Fox's state, she can't believe he could be so fragile. Ain Rand fakes a few more coughs to get her attention. I help Ain Rand up, feeling very displeased, but he puts his weight on me, and I lose my balance. Both of us fall to the ground in close contact, and Ain Rand says innocently, "Are you okay?" Chi Ain angrily curses Ain Rand's actions, not knowing why he suddenly became so heavy. Ain Rand, however, spits blood while looking at his benefactor. This makes Chi Ain smell a sweet scent. He touches my face and apologizes for his earlier actions. He gently wipes the blood from my face. I immediately stand up and wipe my own face, refusing to let others touch it. Ain Rand, however, says I'm being fierce, claiming he's the one who's hurt. I stand up and cross my arms, stating I have no obligation to save you. So weak, yet you make a girl support you. Ain Rand holds out his hand, wanting me to pull him up. I have no choice but to extend my hand to pull him up. At the same time, I warn Ain Rand to behave and not pull any tricks. The moment I grab his hand, I feel something is wrong. He looks frail and talks about how miserable he is, and that I save him twice. He wants to help me fulfill my wish, so he can leave in peace. Even if he has to endure more injuries and suffering, he must help his benefactor. I ask him if this is true. You want me to make a wish? He tells me to think it over. I lean in and whisper in Ain Rand's ear. I want your injuries to heal quickly, then stay far away from me. I wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth and discover it's strawberry jam, not fresh blood. I grab Ain Rand by the collar, furious that he's treating me like a fool, thinking I wouldn't notice. He still says I'm hurting him. I directly expose this wretched fox's trick. Hurt my ass, still pretending. As expected, foxes are naturally cunning and love to deceive. Ain Rand wipes off the strawberry jam, saying he's not cunning. His face turns cold, and he says there are reasons for all this that don't speak carelessly. I point directly at my bracelet, and no matter what, I won't be fooled by your sweet talk. But Ain Rand lowers his head and says, "You really know what to say." This makes me feel that something is wrong. He says with a gloomy face that he has already been very kind. Why are you ungrateful? I'm also very strange. Why is this fox fur gradually turning purple? Chi Ain tightly grips the bracelet. Wretched fox, what are you trying to do? Ain Rand looks at me with a smile and says, "You're so smart. Can't you guess what I'm thinking? If I didn't have to fulfill your wish to get my tail back, I could finish you off right now." Of course, I don't believe these words. It's just a trick to deceive me. Stop with all this nonsense. If you have something to say, just say it. Being stared at by him makes my hair stand on end. Ain Rand looks at the bracelet on my hand with a complicated expression. It's a lovely pink. I keep touching the bracelet. He immediately separates my hand from the bracelet, telling me not to touch the bracelet anymore. Ain Rand tries to separate Chi Yin's hand from the bracelet. Chi Yin is a bit confused. Ain Rand thinks she did something to the bracelet. Chi Yin angrily explains, "This is your fox fur tail. How would I know it would change color?" Ayn Rand didn't expect this woman to have such a great influence on the bracelet. Ayn Rand once again takes Chi Yin's hand, touches the fox fur bracelet, and gently rubs it. It actually turns pink again. Ayn Rand clearly feels the same sensation as before. He can't believe that he would feel inexplicably comfortable from her touch. Chi Yin realizes that Ayn Rand is testing her reaction to touching the fox fur and angrily tries to escape. Ayn Rand explains that he can't control it and doesn't want to cause trouble for his benefactor. Chi Yin thinks he's just saying nice things, and since he's fine now, she wants him to leave quickly. Ayn Rand formally looks around and finds the place a bit deserted. Then he sees a photograph and curiously asks Chi Yin if that is her father. Chi Yin blocks it and tells him not to be so nosy. She then asks him what he really wants. Ayn Rand frankly states, "Since my benefactor prefers to be direct, can my benefactor take me in?" Chi Yin has never met such a shameless person that you're able-bodied, can eat and work, and you're not injured. Why should I take you in? Ayn Rand explains that he has nowhere to go, because he was trapped for hundreds of years with no one to care for him. Rescued by his benefactor, he can only follow his benefactor. He continues, saying that perhaps because he is too unfamiliar with the modern world, he apologizes for his recklessness just now. But everything he did was just to get closer to his benefactor, with no other ill intentions. Chi Yin seems to be moved by his words. Ayn Rand continues to promise not to cause trouble for his benefactor. He can also wait for his benefactor to make a wish. During this time, he will prove his sincerity to his benefactor. After hearing this, Chi Yin is somewhat swayed. One instinct tells her that asking to be taken in is just his trick, and she shouldn't easily believe the fox demon's deception. But another instinct tells her to observe him first. Perhaps the wretched fox really has no one to rely on. Seeing this, Ayn Rand quickly asks his benefactor, who is still on her period, to sit down and rest, and offers to pour her hot tea. Chi Yin turns back to call out to Ayn Rand, but is interrupted by a phone notification. Chi Yin picks up her phone to check. It's from Xiao Sun. He found that she forgot her notebook. Just as Chi Yin is about to say she'll go get it, Xiao Sun says he's almost at her apartment building and will wait for her downstairs. In the classroom, Xiao Sun learned from Lulu that Chi Yin left in a hurry, so he decided to return the notebook to her. Lulu then gossips, asking Xiao Sun, since he lives so close to Chi Yin, if he's delivering it specially. Xiao Sun frankly states that he and Chi Yin live in the same complex, so it's on his way to bring it back for her. Seeing that Chi Yin is going downstairs, Ayn Rand asks where she is going. Chi Yin just says she has something to do, and tells the wretched fox not to touch anything, that she'll be back soon. Ayn Rand has no choice but to agree. Just then, the door is shut with a bang. Xiao Sun holds the milk, thinking to himself that it's good it's still warm. Chi Yin comes over from the side and asks embarrassedly if Xiao Sun has been waiting long. Xiao Sun quickly replies that it's fine, he just arrived. He hands the milk in his hand to Chi Yin. Chi Yin notices the milk is warm. Xiao Sun then asks with concern if she's feeling better now. Should she take a day off tomorrow? Chi Yin quickly explains that she's not that weak. She's long since recovered. She thinks to herself, don't tell me that wretched fox told the whole class I had period cramps and was lying in the infirmary. Xiao Sun also explains, I didn't say you were weak, and hands her the notebook. Chi Yin says she left early because she had something to take care of. Just then, she discovers that there are also some heat packs tucked behind the book. Xiao Sun knows Chi Yin hasn't been well and has been sleepy lately, reminding her that since one is no longer here, she needs to be more careful. Chi Yin agrees, saying that lately, it seems she not only needs that but also needs to ward off evil. Xiao Sun asks with some surprise if Chi Yin believes in that stuff too. Chi Yin is a bit helpless. Xiao Sun comforts her, saying that even if there is, it would be a guardian spirit by her side, so there's no need to worry about any evil spirits. These words make Chi Yin think of the big trouble she has at home. She thanks Xiao Sun and says she'll treat him to a meal another day, then turns to go home. Xiao Sun quickly reminds her to remember to wear an extra layer of clothing at night. Xiao Sun stands there watching Chi Yin quickly walk away. Xiao Sun knows in his heart that he didn't do all this just so Chi Yin would treat him to a meal. Xiao Sun originally had a question he wanted to ask Chi Yin because he had vaguely heard the new guy call Chi Yin benefactor, so he wanted to know why that guy would call Chi Yin benefactor. Chi Yin arrives home and pushes open the door. She suddenly remembers, doesn't that wretched fox need to do homework? She can't even see his school bag. She walks in, but finds no one in the room. Chi Yin suddenly has a bad feeling. Then she hears a clattering sound. Chi Yin wonders what that sound is. Judging by the sound, it's coming from upstairs. She thinks it must be the wretched fox. Chi-in runs upstairs and angrily asks the wretched fox what he's doing. Before she can finish her sentence, she sees Ain Rand squatting on the floor, with a pile of puzzle pieces scattered on the floor. Ain Rand quickly explains it wasn't on purpose and asks Chi-in if these are important. Chi-in stands there stunned, looking at her puzzle. This was the part she had painstakingly just finished yesterday. At this moment, Chi-in wishes she could beat him up. Ain Rand sees that there are many more on the benefactor's bookshelf and asks if she likes to collect puzzles. He explains that he can buy a new one for his benefactor. Because this is something Chi-in spent a lot of time and energy to complete, it can't be bought with money. Angry, she no longer wants to take Ain Rand in. While apologizing, Ain Rand thinks that perhaps he can start with her puzzles in the future, and promises to help her reassemble it. But Chi-in says it took her a very long time, and it's not as simple as he thinks. But Ain Rand doesn't seem to think it's difficult at all. Chi-in lets out a cold laugh. Then she takes out a 29-piece puzzle and declares that if Ain Rand can finish it in 5 minutes, she will continue to let him stay. With that, she prepares to start the timer. It turns out the difficulty of this puzzle lies in its 5 true corners. Not only that, but many pieces are designed with straight edges, any of which could be a border piece. So as time slowly ticks by, one needs to constantly rearrange and can only keep trying. Even a novice could spend hours and still not be able to solve it. Ain Rand stares thoughtfully at the puzzle pieces in his hand. Chi-in states that even she took almost half an hour at her fastest. She thinks to herself that the wretched fox has never encountered this kind of puzzle before, so she stands aside with confidence. Just then, Ain Rand smiles and holds up the completed puzzle for my benefactor's inspection. Chi-in has a look of utter disbelief, snatching it to take a look. Because it's only been 2 minutes, Chi-in suspects he must have done it before. How could it be so fast? Ain Rand explains that he can solve a 24-post Luban lock in less than a minute, let alone this simple puzzle. Chi-in feels a wave of annoyance. Ain Rand continues, saying that in the past, even high officials and nobles would beg him for help with puzzles. When it comes to intelligence, he has never lost. Chi-in has no choice but to admit that what this fox says seems to be true. Ain Rand, afraid she'll go back on her word, reminds her that she promised to let him stay. Chi-in states that she always keeps her word. However, Chi-in tells him that he must reassemble all the pieces he knocked over tonight. Ain Rand readily agrees. Over here, Chi-in has just finished washing up. She looks down at the living room from upstairs to see how much the wretched fox has pieced together. To her surprise, he has already finished half of it. Ain Rand is secretly pleased that he's almost done. He turns his head and sees Chi-in watching him from upstairs. He doesn't forget to tease, "Is my benefactor going to sleep soon? Want to piece it together?" But Chi-in says, "You made the mess, you clean it up." As she turns to leave, she warns him not to mess with things downstairs, or he'll be kicked out in the morning if she finds out. Ain Rand tactfully replies, "Of course. Good night and sweet dreams, benefactor." This time, Ain Rand's mind starts scheming again. A completed puzzle can be messed up. If there's no wish, a wish can be created. Chi-in lies down, hoping she won't have any more nightmares tonight. But Ain Rand thinks, the things my benefactor doesn't want to happen, will they really not happen? Ain Rand looks at Chi-in, who is in the same house as him, yet can sleep so soundly, as if she trusts him completely. So he slowly sits on the edge of Chi-in's bed. His tail gently brushes against Chi-in's blanket. He doesn't want to pretend anymore. Just then, Chi-in sits up abruptly. After calming down, she realizes it was just another nightmare. She gets out of bed to open the door. As she goes downstairs, she keeps thinking another unlucky dream so early in the morning. Just then, she sees the completed puzzle on the table. She is surprised to find that the wretched fox really finished it all. Looking closely, she sees a sticky note placed beside it. She picks up the note and sees it says, "I heard the greatest sense of accomplishment comes from placing the last piece of a puzzle, so I left it for my benefactor." She thinks to herself that the wretched fox is quite thoughtful. Seeing his good attitude, she decides to forgive him for last night's incident for now. Just then, Chi-in looks around and realizes she can't see any sign of Ain Rand again. Chi-in arrives at school. Lulu sees her and quickly comes over to greet her, as if something has happened again. Chi-in is confused. Lulu then holds up her phone and says, "You went viral in the school group chat last night." Chi-in is completely baffled. It turns out that during the camping trip, someone secretly took a photo of Chi-in going into the restricted area and posted it in the school group chat. And now everyone is asking who this junior is in the picture and if anyone knows her, and they're all talking about it. Chi-in can't understand who would be so bored as to take that picture. Lulu asks if anyone has added Chi-in as a friend. Chi-in opens her phone and sees that she has indeed received friend requests. Before the two can finish talking, they hear people whispering and gossiping behind them. Just then, Lulu reminds Chi-in that the senior over there seems to be looking for her. Sure enough, they hear a senior calling out to them. Then he starts gossiping about the last camping trip, how Chi-in went into the restricted area alone, and begins to praise her. Chi-in makes an excuse, saying her brain probably just short-circuited for a moment. A classmate flatters her, saying that if he had been there that day, he would have definitely protected the junior. But Chi-in says that a place like the restricted area is best not to go to. What if you provoke something you shouldn't? The two classmates are scared speechless. Chi-in explains she was just kidding and tells everyone to go back to class. One senior, however, self-importantly thinks that Chi-in is concerned about him. Chi-in thinks to herself, if she hadn't entered the restricted area, she wouldn't have met the wretched fox, right? As soon as she gets to the classroom, she looks up and sees the wretched fox. It turns out he arrived at school before her. Chi-in walks over and asks Ayn Rand what he's doing at her desk. Just then, Chi-in notices something strange about Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand has silently made up his mind countless times. Then, he actually tells Chi-in that he cares about her a little. Chi-in stands there in a daze. Ayn Rand teases, I didn't expect Xiao-ing to be so popular. But Chi-in snatches the card from Ayn Rand's hand, telling him not to touch her things. It turns out the card says someone is asking Chi-in to meet at the edge of the sports field in the afternoon. Ayn Rand asks if she will go. Lulu is worried and wants to go with her, but Chi-in refuses, saying she doesn't know this person. The dismissal bell rings. Ayn Rand is lying leisurely on a tree branch. Thinking that he hasn't made much progress in the few days he's been here, he remembers the words of that old geezer, the heavenly god. Only by fulfilling the sincere wish of the person who found his severed tail can he regain his freedom. But Ayn Rand feels that the woman doesn't seem to have any wishes. She has everything she needs and scorns money. Ordinary wishes won't work on her. He has to approach it from another angle. A voice reaches his ears. A girl calls out to Chi-in. It turns out Chi-in really went to the meeting. Chi-in holds a note and looks at the girl in confusion. The girl says she really wants to be friends with her. The girl sees Chi-in's confusion and says shyly that she just wants to get to know her. Chi-in grabs the girl's hand and comforts her, don't be nervous. Let's go sit over there for a while. The girl agrees uneasily. Ayn Rand mutters from the tree. Chi-in is quite gentle with her classmates. Is it only with girls? Two other girls walk over, see Chi-in walking with another girl, and can't help but whisper among themselves, thinking the girl is using Chi-in's good nature to get a protector. The two are mocking the girl when Ayn Rand walks over and greets them. The two are startled, not knowing when this handsome guy appeared. Ayn Rand then curiously asks them if they have anything else to reveal about the topic of Chi-in they were just discussing. Meanwhile, Chi-in is chatting with a girl. Her impression of her is that she suddenly ran up to her last time, didn't say anything, and then ran away. The girl says timidly that she wanted to say something, but never dared. The girl says that when everyone heard she liked Chi-in, she was ridiculed. But she still gathered the courage to write a note to Chi-in. Chi-in comforts her. From now on, we're friends. You don't have to be shy. You can say whatever you want. The girl notices that Chi-in changed her hair tie today and compliments it. Chi-in says the girl's hair is also very suitable for a hair tie. The girl is a bit embarrassed. Chi-in says there's nothing wrong with it, as long as you're happy. The girl looks at Chi-in with admiration because she thinks Chi-in is both beautiful and kind-hearted. It's hard not to like her. During another break, Lulu asks Chi-in how her meeting went today. Chi-in explains that it was just the girl who strangely ran away before. She was too shy to say she wanted to be friends back then. Lulu is disappointed, thinking it was a confession from a boy. Chi-in tells her she's overthinking it. Meanwhile, the girl who wrote the letter to Chi-in is cornered by several other girls. Suddenly, one girl raises her hand and slaps the girl across the face. Her glasses fall to the ground. The girls menacingly mock her. Suddenly, a voice calls out, "What are you doing?" It's Chi-in. She can't believe it. People are still hitting others with books these days. One of the troublemaking girls is surprised to see Chi-in. She tries to stop Chi-in from interfering, saying that Chi-in's standards for making friends are too low. Chi-in shoves the girl who spoke aside and says with a disdainful look, "What's it to you?" Chi-in quickly helps the girl up. Another troublemaking girl suddenly gets angry and grits her teeth, swinging her hand towards Chi-in. Chi-in dodges in time, and the girl doesn't hit her. Chi-in questions the girl, "What are you trying to do?" The girl asks Chi-in with a sinister expression, "Since you're being a hero, why did you dodge? The other two girls don't understand why their senior suddenly started fighting. They go forward to try and hold their senior back, telling her to calm down, but are pushed away by her. She then declares that today she will bully her to the end, that don't blame me for being merciless to anyone who gets in my way. Chi-in nonchalantly loosens her grip on her bag and asks her what she means. The sound of the bag dropping to the ground is exceptionally clear. Chi-in once again asks the girl if she wants to fight. Seeing this, a few people start discussing in a small group that there's a fight over there. It seems to be a conflict between upperclassmen and underclassmen. In-ran, however, calmly witnesses everything that has just happened. He thinks to himself that the time is about right. Just then, Chi-in is sitting on the ground, clutching her stomach. The girl worriedly supports the injured Chi-in. The troublemaking girl declares, "How dare you little chicks fight with me?" Before she can finish her sentence, a hand suddenly swings out from the side. With a loud smack, it hits the girl's face. It's In-ran. In-ran asks with concern if Chi-in is hurt. It turns out that everything that just happened was the first step for In-ran to gain Chi-in's trust. In-ran continues to show concern for Xiao-in. Chi-in asks in confusion how In-ran got here. Then she points to the troublemaking senior who has now fainted and tells In-ran he came at the right time. The girl at the side exclaims in admiration, as expected of Chi-in, "Your taekwondo is so amazing." Chi-in is speechless, her world cracking on the spot. In the office, the teacher slams a ruler on the desk with a loud crack. The girl quickly admits her mistake, saying she won't do it again, and begs the teacher not to call her mom. Chi-in tries to protect the girl, explaining that the senior started it. The teacher thinks Chi-in actually dares to talk back. Angrily, he slams the ruler on the desk again. In-ran walks in at this moment and explains that he saw it with his own eyes, testifying for Chi-in and the girl. But the teacher says knowing taekwondo is not for hurting classmates. The person is still in the infirmary, and you're still making excuses. It's simply unreasonable. The school will not keep such a student. At this, Chi-in stands there in disbelief. 1 hour earlier, In-ran was controlling all of this from the tree. The senior's consciousness was controlled by a voice. This voice told her that no matter who tried to stop her, she must do what she wanted to do to the very end. After the incident, 2 classmates helped the unusually behaved senior to leave. The girl is still worried, afraid of the teacher finding out what happened. Chi-in comforts the girl, telling her not to be afraid, that the teacher won't be unreasonable. In-ran sits next to Chi-in, curiously asking about her taekwondo skills. After replying, Chi-in asks him how he knew she was here just now. In-ran answers that he heard people talking over there, but he didn't expect Chi-in to be able to take them all down by herself. Chi-in says disdainfully that of course she can handle such a small matter, and tells In-ran to just not cause any trouble. In-ran is left speechless. After being advised to withdraw from school by the teacher, Chi-in stands there in disbelief. The teacher's expression is strange as she again mentions the punishment of expulsion. Then the teacher explains that this was the original plan, but In-ran pleaded for them. Chi-in is a bit confused. The teacher continues, saying that injuring someone is a very serious matter. Since In-ran explained the cause and effect, and that girl doesn't blame Chi-in, what just happened was only a warning. Chi-in sincerely states her willingness to accept the consequences, but it's a fact that the senior was bullying a classmate, and she hopes the teacher will investigate thoroughly. The teacher, using the senior's injury as a reason, scolds her loudly, telling her not to worry about it. As for the punishment for injuring someone, it is to go clean the sports equipment room right now for a whole week. Chi-in agrees and sheepishly turns to leave. She curiously whispers to In-ran, asking what he said to the teacher. The teacher at the side, seeing this, was so scared by Teacher Chin's terrifying appearance just now that she didn't dare to make sound. Then she asks with concern how this was handled. Teacher Chin instantly sobers up, explaining that they should just pretend they didn't see what happened. She doesn't know what got into her, spouting a bunch of nonsense and even threatening them with expulsion. Then she angrily yells at Teacher Shui across from her to manage her students and stop them from bullying students in her class, saying she needs to have a talk with them. Over here, Chi-in is cleaning while thinking about what just happened. She doesn't know why, but she feels that everything happened very strangely. She recalls hearing the conversation between the female classmates and the senior outside the infirmary earlier. She felt the senior had become a complete stranger in an instant. So, Chi-in walks to the door and apologizes to the senior. The 2 female classmates, however, are relentless. The senior is extremely annoyed and doesn't want to pursue the matter, thinking she must have had some terrible luck. It was all so inexplicable. Chi-in stands there, not knowing what else to say. Chi-Een thinks about the senior's inexplicable provocation and the teacher's threat of expulsion. No matter how she thinks about it, something still feels off. Ayn Rand walks over at some point and asks with concern if Chi-Een needs any help. Chi-Een is suspicious, feeling that Ayn Rand has helped her a lot tonight. Even the teacher specifically said it was because of Ayn Rand's persuasion that she changed her mind. Ayn Rand again uses the excuse that Xiao-Een is his benefactor, so of course he has to help. Chi-Een looks at the wretched fox's smile, feeling it's extremely cunning. So she hands him the rag. It turns out Chi-Een says her back is sore and she's going over there to rest, asking Ayn Rand to wipe for her for a while. Here, Ayn Rand asks with concern if it's that serious for Chi-Een and if she needs a massage. Chi-Een refuses and suspects Ayn Rand of helping that girl take the punishment. Why not just take her place directly? The teacher said that recent events all feel very strange and tells Ayn Rand that these things had better not be related to him. Ayn Rand thinks to himself that this woman is quite cautious. He then reminds Chi-Een that the teacher seems to be coming up from downstairs. Chi-Een suspects he's just trying to get out of work by tricking her. Suddenly, the teacher's voice is heard, asking Chi-Een how the cleaning is going. Chi-Een is instantly startled, snatches the rag, and continues wiping the glass, not forgetting to greet the teacher. Ayn Rand is snickering on the side. Chi-Een quickly asks the teacher why she suddenly came over. The teacher says very sincerely that she should trust the students in her own class and apologizes for her words earlier, and says that she hadn't noticed before, but Ayn Rand has a really good character and is willing to help his classmates. She then continues, saying that Xiao Sun and Lulu were also asking about this matter just now, and tells Chi-Een to go home early after she's done and not stay too late. Chi-Een is a bit overwhelmed by the favor. As the teacher is about to leave, she jokes to Chi-Een that she wants to learn Taekwondo someday, the kind that doesn't hurt people. Chi-Een watches the teacher walk away, thinking that the teacher really hasn't changed. Suddenly, it occurs to her that the teacher just said Ayn Rand has a good heart. It's almost certain she was bewitched by the wretched fox. Ayn Rand quickly says it's a good thing the teacher didn't blame his benefactor. Chi-Een rolls her eyes at the hypocritical Ayn Rand. Just then, Chi-Een sees a stain on the glass that's a bit high and asks Ayn Rand to bend down. She says she can't reach it up there and needs to trouble him for help. He wouldn't refuse, would he? Ayn Rand says of course he wouldn't refuse his benefactor's request and reminds her to be careful. Chi-Een then lifts her foot to step on him. After standing on him, she sees the wretched fox has no reaction and thinks he must have a guilty conscience. Ayn Rand, squatting below, asks Chi-Een if she can reach it. At this moment, Chi-Yin's mischievous thoughts are written all over her face. She keeps telling Ayn Rand to adjust his position left and right. But Ayn Rand says, as long as Xiaoying is happy. This is nothing to me. Seeing him say this, Chi-Yin again makes him shift his position left and then right. Ayn Rand can't figure out what little trick this woman is playing. Chi-Yin sees a dirty spot she can't reach and asks Ayn Rand to adjust again. But Ayn Rand doesn't move. She thinks to herself that this fox is too weak. But Ayn Rand says moving like this is too much trouble and prepares to stand up. Chi-Yin screams, not knowing what he's about to do. Just then, her legs are held and she freezes for a moment. It turns out Ayn Rand has lifted Chi-Yin onto his shoulders. Then he says this is much more convenient. Chi-Yin is speechless. She angrily asks Ayn Rand what he's trying to do and to put her down immediately. Ayn Rand explains, weren't you trying to clean the glass? And asks if this height is okay or if he should lift her up. Chi-Yin is scared and tells Ayn Rand not to move, her hands tightly wrapped around Ayn Rand's neck. Ayn Rand feels Chi-Yin's body trembling a little. Chi-Yin glances down, feeling utterly annoyed with this wretched fox. Chi-Yin's face is flushed with anger. She warns Ayn Rand that if he dares to move, she'll beat him to death. Ayn Rand is just about to ask if she's afraid of heights. But Chi-Yin tightens her grip on Ayn Rand's neck and tells him to shut up. She tells him to put her down immediately or she'll snap his neck. Chi-Yin is at a loss when she sees it's Xiao Sun. After a struggle, Xiao Sun suddenly stands to the side and asks what they are doing. The two are only interrupted by Xiao Sun's voice. After a fierce struggle with Ayn Rand, Chi-Yin is finally down. She quickly asks Xiao Sun why he's here. Ayn Rand thinks to himself, is this woman part cat? First scratching my neck, then shaking my tail. Xiao Sun explains that he heard from the teacher that Chi-Yin was still cleaning, so he came to see if she needed help. Chi-Yin thanks him embarrassedly, saying she's about to go back. She then asks where Lulu is. Xiao Sun says Lulu is waiting at the milk tea shop and tells Chi-Yin to go ahead first. Then he glances at Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand says bye-bye to Xiaoying, saying he'll clean up. Chi-Yin is speechless, saying she'll clean it herself tomorrow. As she leaves, she feels annoyed. She really didn't want the wretched fox to see her like that. Now only Xiao Sun and Yin Ran are left. Yin Ran asks Xiao Sun if he's going to clean up with him. Xiao Sun says he's going to help Qi Yin clean up and tells Yin Ran to stop pestering her. Yin Ran retorts unfriendly to Xiao Sun. Xiao Sun continues to ask Yin Ran, "Can't you see Qi Yin's reluctance?" Yin Ran smiles disdainfully and continues to ask Xiao Sun who he is to her. "I'm just here to help. Aren't you overthinking things?" Then he hands a rag to Xiao Sun, saying that since he's willing to help her clean up, he can do the rest. The two stare at each other for a moment before Yin Ran turns and leaves, rubbing his neck and thinking that the woman's grip is quite strong. Xiao Sun stands there, feeling a strangely familiar sense of danger. Meanwhile, in the coffee shop, Lulu waves at Qi Yin, signaling that she's over here. Qi Yin asks in confusion why Lulu suddenly came here, as it's very expensive. Lulu explains that the small food stalls around the school have all disappeared, and comforts herself that if she can't have a savory crepe, a cup of milk tea is fine. Lulu laments that she didn't expect the breakfast cart Yin Ran treated them to would be the last time. If she had known, she would have eaten more. Qi Yin reminds Lulu to be careful of people who treat others for no reason. Before she can finish her sentence, Yin Ran is standing behind her. Lulu looks happily at the suddenly appearing Yin Ran. Qi Yin questions Yin Ran about cleaning up so quickly, while Yin Ran hands a cup of milk tea over, which Qi Yin refuses. Lulu is disappointed to see that Yin Ran bought a cup of milk tea for Xiao Ying. Just then, Yin Ran tells Qi Yin to look at his injured neck. Lulu is surprised, not knowing what happened. Qi Yin guiltily explained that he made the mess, and it had nothing to do with him. Just as Yin Ran was about to say something, he was interrupted by Qi Yin, who asked Yin Ran why the milk tea was so expensive, costing over 40 yuan. Yin Ran said he just told the clerk to get the best tasting one. He caringly asked if Xiao Yin didn't like it. Qi Yin looked at Yin Ran, puzzled, and asked him where he got so much money. Qi Yin became suspicious about where Yin Ran got so much money because he had bought him the most expensive milk tea. Yin Ran denied being rich, saying he had no money. Qi Yin seemed to think of something and looked at him in disbelief. But Yin Ran said that his face was his pass. Qi Yin stared at him dumbfounded. Then he quietly questioned Yin Ran, asking if he hadn't paid for this treat and the previous ones. Yin Ran asked Xiao Yin if he wasn't curious why he could grant his wishes. He then explained that everything was within reach, needing only a word from Qi Yin. Qi Yin stood there, stunned. Yin Ran then got up, wanting to prove it to him. Then, Yin Ran was heard shamelessly greeting everyone. He then said that the weather was nice today, a good day for a free meal. After speaking, he looked at everyone confidently. All the customers in the shop started to discuss it. Is this today's promotion? Or is he putting on a show? Yin Ran then said loudly that all the food today was free and invited everyone to enjoy it. A clerk saw that the one speaking was the handsome guy who had just eaten and was feeling puzzled. Then another clerk was heard loudly agreeing, "That's right. Today's a store-wide free meal event. Go ahead and eat your fill, everyone. Just be happy." The previous clerk was completely shocked. The customers all exclaimed how lucky they were today to have run into a free meal event. Some customers even planned to go and get their friends. Qi Yin watched all this with suspicion. Lulu, on the other hand, was curious how Yin Ran knew there was an event today. Then, she was about to order the dessert she had always wanted to eat. But Qi Yin stopped her from going. Yin Ran proudly showed off to Qi Yin, saying everyone was very happy and that he could grant anyone's wish. Qi Yin lowered his head, feeling that everyone looked very happy. On second thought, it made sense. Everyone would probably think this was a small stroke of luck that fell from the sky. Just as he was wondering why all of this felt so unreal, his phone suddenly buzzed. It was the Guai Middle School group chat. Xiaoyu sent a message saying she saw the breakfast cart at the South School gate. The classmates started discussing it. The breakfast cart lady ran into something strange. A classmate said they saw the lady pushing an empty cart with a terrible expression on her face, saying she wouldn't come anymore. They didn't know what happened. The nightmare scene reappeared in Qi Yin's mind. A demon fox that plays with people's hearts, doing evil as it pleases, effortlessly achieving anything it wants with the blink of an eye. The clear-headed clerk looked at her colleague, who seemed to have lost her soul, and questioned who Yin Ran was to her. How was she going to cover today's revenue? Qi Yin looked at Yin Ran, standing before him in human form. But he knew he was a fox demon, and everything was just an illusion. Yin Ran's carefully laid traps were just waiting for him to jump in willingly. Yin Ran saw Qi Yin's hesitation, and an evil expression appeared on his face. Chi-in walked to the front counter. He confusedly asked the clerk if there was a free meal event today. Was it a last-minute promotion? The clear-headed clerk said her colleague was usually so poor she ate instant noodles. She didn't understand what was wrong with her today. She wouldn't listen no matter how she tried to persuade her. Chi-in felt this was too strange. It was clearly the stinky fox's trick from when he ordered earlier. So he turned around and questioned Ayn Rand if he did it. Chi-in was angry at Ayn Rand's reckless actions and told him to quickly restore that clerk to normal. But Ayn Rand said, "Benefactor, you don't need to care so much about others." The reason was that the clerk had nothing to do with Chi-in. Chi-in stood there, stunned with anger. He loudly scolded Ayn Rand for being terrible. At this, Ayn Rand's heart felt as if it had been stabbed. He asked Chi-in what he was saying. Chi-in said the price of Ayn Rand granting wishes was built on the suffering of others. This didn't count as granting wishes at all. The two of them locked eyes. Ayn Rand smiled and explained it was just a joke. "Benefactor, don't say that." Then he turned and walked to the clerk, telling her to cancel the free meal event because a customer was unhappy. Chi-in looked at Ayn Rand and the clerk who was explaining to the customers. He felt that Ayn Rand hadn't realized his mistake at all. At that moment, Ayn Rand turned back and walked toward Xiao-in, explaining that he had already made things clear with the clerk. Disappointed, Chi-in brushed past Ayn Rand. He told Lulu he had something to do and was leaving first. Lulu looked at Chi-in, not knowing why he was suddenly acting this way. Ayn Rand followed and apologized to Chi-in, explaining that he didn't know Chi-in cared so much about these things. Seeing Chi-in remain silent, Ayn Rand continued to explain that he just wanted to show him that he could do what others wanted. If he didn't like it, he wouldn't do it again. But Chi-in said whether he did it or not really had nothing to do with him. There were many things he didn't like. Then he continued, asking Ayn Rand if he could stop following him because he didn't like him. Ayn Rand could only stand there, stunned, watching Chi-in turn and walk away. At this moment, Ayn Rand thought to himself, if it weren't for his severed tail being with Chi-in, preventing him from using other powers, who would bother using enchantment? Thinking about Chi-in's expressions and words just now, everything was so frustrating. Just then, Chi-in's phone rang. It was a call from Lao-wen. On the phone, Chi-in asked Lao-wen if he wasn't coming back to join him this time. Lao-wen explained that he still had some things to do. Then he caringly asked Chi-in if he needed money, and also about his WeChat profile picture. Chi-in explained that nothing was wrong. He was just tired of it. Then he wanted to hang up. Lao-wen didn't forget to remind him to eat the dessert he received. Chi-in hung up the phone and wanted to taste this month's blueberry cake to see if it was good. He remembered that at this time in the past, he would always go to the countryside with Lao-wen to help pick blueberries. This seemed to be the first time he was alone. Thinking that he wouldn't have to listen to Lao-wen's nagging this time, he happily savored the cake. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was good news from the group chat. A classmate saw that the breakfast lady was back at the school gate, and she looked very happy. It seemed like there were even more people buying snacks than before. Chi-in didn't understand the situation. That wasn't what they were saying just a moment ago. Then Chi-in saw a message. It turned out a handsome guy had given the lady a large sum of money. There was a photo attached to the message. Chi-in zoomed in and took a closer look. Why is the stinky fox there? Chi-in, who was staring at the picture, was startled by a phone call. He accidentally answered it. It was a video call from Ayn Rand, asking if he had gotten home safely. Chi-in angrily asked Ayn Rand how he got his number. Ayn Rand explained that he bought a communication device, specifically to contact Chi-in. He told him not to hang up and then asked if he had seen the message in the group chat. Seeing this, Chi-in pressed Ayn Rand about the person who gave the breakfast lady a lot of money, asking if he was up to some trick again. Ayn Rand explained, "How could I make my benefactor angry again? I just sent the money to that clerk as well." When Chi-in questioned where he got the money, Ayn Rand said that he earned this money himself. Then he said he was right outside the door and had brought the evidence. Just then, Chi-in heard a knock on the door, thinking, what trick is he playing now? Chi-in opened the door and questioned Ayn Rand, "Since your face is your pass, do you still need to earn money?" Seeing Ayn Rand's clothes, he didn't understand his style of dress. But Ayn Rand said it was to make up for his mistake. Just as Ayn Rand handed some things to Chi-in, his phone rang. After he answered, the person on the other end asked if Ayn Rand was still coming tomorrow and that they were willing to pay double. Chi-in looked at the pictures in his hand and asked Ayn Rand with confusion if he had been working part-time as a clothing model. Looking at such ridiculous and ugly clothes, Chi-in instantly felt his eyes burn. But Ayn Rand explained that to make up for his mistake, he could only sell his face. Chi-in, holding the pictures, asked Ayn Rand, "Is this your method of compensation?" Ayn Rand asked if Chi-in was still angry. But Chi-in told him that if he had time to hang around here, He might as well do more good deeds like this. Chi-in continued to explain that the things Een Ran does have appeared in his dreams. Een Ran listened with confusion as Chi-in said that before meeting him, he had nightmares about a fox every day, which is why he learned Taekwondo for self-defense. Besides, something as good as a wish falling from the sky is usually a disaster. Who knows if I'll be eaten? Een Ran finally understood. So that's how it is. He then moved closer to Chi-in, secretly delighted that his benefactor said he didn't like him, but dreamed of him every day. Chi-in didn't expect him to think that way. Een Ran didn't care if Chi-in was angry and continued to ask if him in the dreams was also this handsome. What do we do in the dreams? Chi-in had never seen someone so narcissistic. Een Ran continued. Could it be some kind of fated connection? Een Ran gently lifted Chi-in's face, explaining that someone he knew also seemed to have a mole under their eye. At that moment, Chi-in threw a punch, saying angrily, "Who has a fated connection with you?" Een Ran's tail gently curled up and wrapped around Chi-in's hands, explaining, "I was just kidding, benefactor. Don't be so violent." Chi-in was angry, not expecting the stinky fox to use his tail again. Een Ran explained that he had just made such a big sacrifice and urged his benefactor not to be angry anymore. Then he gently rubbed Chi-in's face with his tail, telling Chi-in that he wouldn't do anything and the nightmare wouldn't happen, that I will be very good to my benefactor. Chi-in told him to stop it and let him go first. Een Ran explained that he was just defending himself and hoped they could get along peacefully in the future. Chi-in agreed. Een Ran released Chi-in. Suddenly, Chi-in slammed into Een Ran's chest. It turned out he was just pretending to agree to a peaceful coexistence. Chi-in continued to provoke him. "If you have the guts, don't use your tail in the future. I don't believe I'll lose in a fight." Een Ran thought to himself, so hard to please. Then Chi-in explained that he had to go out tomorrow and would only be back the day after. He didn't want to waste any more words on Een Ran and reminded Een Ran to fend for himself for the next 2 days. Een Ran watched Chi-in walk away. Hearing Chi-in tell him to fend for himself, he thought, how could that be? The next day, Chi-in, dressed in a black tracksuit, remarked that the weather was nice and sunny. It seemed like it would be a good harvest. Suddenly, he saw a dark figure over there. It was Een Ran again. He wished Chi-in a good morning and asked where he was going, offering to give him a ride. Chi-in then understood why he couldn't see Een Ran early in the morning. He had gone to book a car. The driver said Een Ran had been waiting here for a long time. Chi-in saw a car approaching from behind and said he had already booked it last night. Then the two of them got into the car Chi-in had booked, one after the other. Een Ran didn't understand why he wouldn't take a nice car. After getting on, he heard an Annie warmly greet Chi-in, asking if he was also going to the countryside and showering him with praise. Chi-in turned to Een Ran and said he was going to the countryside to help pick blueberries, telling him not to follow. But Een Ran shamelessly said, "Of course, I'm going to help." He didn't forget to politely greet the Annies on the bus. Chi-in thought to himself, the stinky fox is all smiles now. I'll definitely make him do a lot of hard labor later. In the blueberry orchard, Een Ran asked Chi-in, "Do we have to wear this hat to pick?" But Chi-in said, "If you don't want to be baked to death by the sun, of course you have to wear it." Een Ran then asked, "Benefactor, why did you give me such a shabby hat?" Chi-in thought to himself, "Of course I deliberately chose a shabby hat for him, and I won't let him change it." He came over with a basket and saw them still bickering. She comforted them, saying it was hard work this time, and she would treat them to a big meal when they were done. He then said that when Chi-in's father comes back, and he doesn't have to come pick blueberries, she would definitely treat them to a meal. Chi-in smiled and said that after Laowen returns, he would definitely come when he has time. Een Ran thought to himself, the Laowen she just mentioned must be Chi-in's father, but I haven't seen any pictures of his mother at home. At this point, Een Ran caringly asked Xiao-in, "Is your mother also working out of town?" Chi-in was stunned for a moment. He reminded Een Ran to focus on picking blueberries. Why so many questions? Een Ran then realized that Chi-in didn't seem to want to talk about his family. Was there some hidden reason? He was surprised to find that Een Ran's speed was really fast. In just a short while, 2 baskets were almost full. Shocked, Een Ran explained, "Now you can't say I'm slacking off, right?" Then he continued, "This is already at 8x speed." Chi-in thought to himself, I originally thought it would be enough if this guy didn't cause me trouble. Turns out his tail is surprisingly useful. Over here, Een Ran's basket was almost full. He asked an Annie to give him a bigger one. The Auntie said in surprise, "It's full after just a short while." Een Ran said, "Xiao-in has a picking technique. I'm learning from him." Chi-in walked over, standing there and seeing that the 5 baskets were quickly filled, he took the initiative to let Ain Rand rest for a while. An auntie at the side praised, "The young man has been busy until now and has picked several times more than me. Youth is truly an advantage." Chi Ain thought to himself, I don't know if the stinky fox is being sincere or fake, but he really did help a lot. Maybe his intentions aren't bad. It's just as he said, I'm prejudiced against him because of the fox nightmares. Ain Rand, on the side, showed a smug expression. Ain Rand said, this is the last basket. I want to finish it before resting. Then he suddenly asked, Xiao Yin, you were spacing out just now. What were you thinking about? Chi Yin quickly denied it, saying he wasn't spacing out. Seeing this, Ain Rand said, picking blueberries is really physical work. My tail is so sore, I can't even lift it. Chi Yin handed a water bottle to Ain Rand, saying in a sarcastic tone, now I know who was bragging just now. Ain Rand was stunned for a moment when he saw Chi Yin handing him the water bottle. He quickly took it. Chi Yin said he had rested enough and it was time to get back to work. He turned and saw there were still many more over there and prepared to go pick them. Ain Rand held the water bottle Chi Yin gave him, a smile spreading across his face. In the evening, in the room, the auntie praised Ain Rand again that I can't believe you picked so many baskets. It's almost the amount a group of us picks in a whole day. How did you do it? Chi Yin saw that Ain Rand didn't respond and nudged him. Chi Yin said, it was mainly Ain Rand who picked a lot. He might have a technique. But Ain Rand said, what technique? It's probably talent. The auntie arranged for Xiao Yin to have his previous room and let Ain Rand sleep in Lao Wen's room. She happily told everyone to eat and rest early, hoping they would continue to work hard tomorrow. Chi Yin obediently responded. Ain Rand looked out the window, feeling like something wasn't quite right. At this moment, Chi Yin returned to his room and felt a wave of sleepiness. He was suddenly startled awake by a knock on the door. He thought, who is it? That scared me. Then he heard Ain Rand's voice asking if he was asleep. Chi Yin asked, Stinky Fox, what do you want? Ain Rand explained that he felt there was no movement in the room, so he came to ask. Chi Yin looked at him with some suspicion and asked what was wrong. Ain Rand then asked Chi Yin, do you feel that the air around here is very cold? Hearing him say this, Chi Yin got angry, thinking the stinky fox was trying to pull some trick again. Then, Chi Yin, on the grounds that it's just a bit cold in the countryside at night, suspected Ain Rand was overthinking it. Ain Rand explained, this is the keen sense of a fox demon. One moment, it's terrifyingly quiet. The next, there are strange rustling sounds. Chi Yin was scared and asked, what else? Before Ain Rand could say anything, Chi Yin opened the door, feeling that Ain Rand was making a big deal out of nothing, that you're not trying to scare me, are you? Ain Rand said embarrassedly, it seems like it's really nothing. I was a little worried just now. Chi Yin said he had stayed here many times and it was always safe. He questioned Ain Rand, are you deliberately trying to disturb my sleep? Suddenly, Ain Rand blocked the door Chi Yin was trying to close. Another wave of cold air. Ain Rand quietly sensed it. The cold air seemed to be spreading from around this room. Ain Rand suddenly asked Chi Yin, are you going to sleep here alone tonight? Chi Yin was stunned for a moment. He suddenly pushed Ain Rand out angrily that, if not alone, then how many people should sleep here? As Ain Rand was pushed out, he heard a slam. The door was closed. Ain Rand looked at Chi Yin's tightly shut door. At this moment, Chi Yin thought Ain Rand was playing some trick again and said, I'm not sleeping in the same room as you. Just then, Chi Yin heard Ain Rand's laughter from outside. Chi Yin asked him what he was laughing at. Ain Rand explained, Xiao Yin, you're overthinking it. Nothing would happen even if we stayed in the same room. Chi Yin retorted that he wasn't overthinking it and told the stinky fox to go back to his room to sleep. Ain Rand could only tell Chi Yin to call him if anything happened. In the room, Chi Yin was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, something unknown filled the entire room. Chi Yin seemed to hear a sound. He slowly opened his eyes and sat up in bed. Suddenly, he saw flickering points of light in the room. Chi Yin wanted to gently touch them with his hand. He wondered what these flickering points of light could be. Ain Rand heard a creaking sound somewhere. The more he thought about it, the more something felt wrong. He got up and walked to Chi Yin's room. Pushing the door open, he felt the mist filling the room and unconsciously covered his mouth and nose. He found that Chi Yin was not in the room. He turned and saw something buzzing in the hallway. He reached out to grab it and felt a sharp pain. A small insect fell to the ground. At this moment, Ain Rand opened his hand and found that his palm was actually bleeding. Then his brows furrowed. On the other side, Chi Yin was walking strangely in the woods. A demonic aura seemed to emanate from his body. Suddenly, he tripped and fell to the ground. At this moment, Chi Yin suddenly woke up. He looked around in confusion, rubbing his head, not knowing what was going on. How'd I end up here? It was only then that he realized he had no strength in his entire body. He felt dizzy. It took him a while to realize this was the forest behind the blueberry orchard. Suddenly, Chi-in became alert. A voice came from behind him, as if someone was coming to catch him. A man in a Taoist robe and sunglasses walked out from the woods behind him, thinking he had caught the nine-tailed fox demon. Chi-in asked in confusion what he was talking about. The man said he had waited for hundreds of years and didn't expect it to deliver itself to his door. It wasn't in vain that he had raised so many ghost fireflies for so many years. According to him, they brought Chi-in here, and this would become Chi-yin's burial place. Chi-in explained that he was not the nine-tailed fox the man was looking for. Chi-in wanted to explain, but his legs suddenly went numb. Just then, the man stepped forward and grabbed Chi-yin's hand, saying, "Even if you're turned to ash, I'd remember the scent of this fox demon." The man saw that Chi-in was wearing a fox bracelet on his hand. Chi-in seemed to understand something. The man raised the small knife in his hand, preparing to stab Chi-in. Chi-in didn't dare to open his eyes. The man had a struggling expression on his face, constantly shouting, "Killing him is eliminating a pest for the people." Just as he was about to strike, he suddenly heard a voice from behind, mocking the man. "Stop being so sanctimonious." It was Ayn Rand. He continued to mock the man. "Is such a rotten method of raising insects with blood something to be proud of?" The man turned around. Chi-in thought to himself, why did the stinky fox suddenly appear again? Ayn Rand continued to speak to the man. "You can't even tell where the real fox demon is. You're truly a fool." The man didn't believe that he and his ghost fireflies could be mistaken. He was about to strike Chi-in again, but then he had a second thought. If this was a fox demon, it's impossible for this girl to be unharmed after he touched her like that. Before the man could react, Ayn Rand swiped his tail in front of the man's face. The man's sunglasses fell to the ground. After a moment of silence, Ayn Rand suddenly realized the man was indeed blind. The man wanted to get up and angrily threw off Chi-yin's hand, saying, "So what if I'm blind? I have long heard that fox demons confuse people with their demonic words. Is that demonic art still effective on a blind man? For generations, we have gouged out our eyes just to be able to kill the fox demon one day." Ayn Rand stood there stunned, without a word. Chi-in thought to himself, such deep hatred. What did the stinky fox do in the past? The man asked Ayn Rand if he remembered the scar on his face. Then he opened his outer garment, revealing the clothes inside, and asked Ayn Rand if they looked familiar. Ayn Rand took a closer look. Chi-in also saw that the man was wearing fox fur underneath. A scene suddenly flashed through Ayn Rand's mind. A rich man held up a shiny fox fur and asked Ayn Rand to choose, saying, "Wouldn't this be good for a custom-made fur coat?" Ayn Rand looked at the birthmark on the fur, smelled the familiar scent, and thought of his elder. The rich man asked again if Ayn Rand was familiar with the fur. Ayn Rand waved his hands. His revealed tails made the woman step back. She paled and said, "It's really a nine-tailed fox demon." The man came out and berated the woman for being unworldly. Then he said, "It has 9 tails. I'm going to be rich." Ayn Rand lowered his head without a word. Suddenly, he swayed and asked the couple if they were in the business of selling fox fur. Then Ayn Rand's vision began to blur. He realized there was something in the tea he just drank. With a stagger, Ayn Rand knelt on the ground. He thought, could it be that they knew I was a fox demon all along? At this moment, he could only kneel helplessly on the ground. Looking at his injured self, he thought, I just washed away my sins. Why must I go through this again? The first time was for self-preservation. This time is the same. They hate demons, but are more evil than demons. They brought all this upon themselves. A voice told him to kill the people, devour their hearts, and rule over those lowly creatures. The rich man's voice came to his ears again. Killing this demon is just eliminating a pest for the people. As for taking its tails and selling them for a good price, that's helping the demon accumulate merit. Ayn Rand finally couldn't bear it anymore. His tail wrapped around the woman's neck. He thought, if the first time I killed was because I was deceived, then this time it's because I've seen the evil in people's hearts. Back in the present, the man said, now that I've killed you, this demon, my ancestors can finally rest in peace. Chi-in also seemed to understand that Ayn Rand's actions were all because of the fur trade. Just then, Ayn Rand swung his tail, wanting to send the man away. But Ayn Rand suddenly felt a sharp pain from his tail. With a stagger, Ayn Rand squatted on the ground and retracted his tail. The man laughed triumphantly. As expected, Ayn Rand, you can't touch me. Those insects really are useful. Ayn Rand thought of the ghost fireflies that caused a sharp pain upon contact. He didn't understand what evil art the man had cultivated. Chi-in worriedly asked, Stinky Fox, "Are you okay?" Kneeling on the ground, Chi-in could only worry helplessly. The man stated that he had been feeding the ghost fireflies with his blood for years, just for this moment. The fox demon couldn't get close to him at all. He arrogantly asked Ain Rand, "How does the heart-wrenching pain feel? Just wait for me to chop off those 9 tails." Just then, the man remembered his knife wasn't in his hand. Ain Rand saw Chi-in clutching the knife and hiding it behind his back. The man turned back to Chi-in and said, "Although I'm blind, it doesn't mean I don't know anything." Then he grabbed the hand with which Chi-in was tightly holding the knife. He angrily shouted at Chi-in, "You thieving girl, you're definitely involved with the fox demon too. You all deserve to die." Chi-in rebuked the man. "You're wearing the fur of hunted foxes. How can you have the nerve to say that? Weren't you the ones who provoked the foxes and hunted them?" The man retorted that those were beasts, just like chickens, ducks, cows, and horses. How could they be compared to humans? He then continued, "A demon's nature will never change. If you sympathize with him, you'll be the one to die." To Chi-in, what the man said was all nonsense, because he felt that Ain Rand's self-defense was not wrong. It was just that he didn't expect him to have the ability to fight back. As for the man's actions, Chi-in thought they were no different from a demon's. The man was actually rendered speechless. The man thought Chi-in's words were making excuses for the demon, so he believed they were in it together. He then snatched the knife from Chi-in's hand. He declared that today he would eliminate a pest for the people. Before his words faded, a drop of fresh blood fell to the ground. Chi-in was so scared he froze. Everything fell silent. At this moment, Ain Rand was squatting on the ground, shielding Chi-in. Chi-in looked worriedly at the stinky fox. The man pulled out the knife, not expecting Ain Rand to rush forward to meet it. He declared that being stabbed by this blessed knife meant certain death. At this moment, Chi-in looked at the fresh blood on his hands and looked at Ain Rand with concern, thinking, "Why did you block the knife for me?" Just then, Ain Rand used his tail to forcefully wrap around the man's knife-wielding hand. The man asked resentfully, "What are you doing? Are you not dying fast enough?" Chi-in was stunned and froze on the spot. Ain Rand kept tightening his tail around the man, wanting to perish together with him. Chi-in watched all this anxiously. Just then, a hand reached out and covered Chi-in's eyes. It turned out Ain Rand didn't want his benefactor to see this brutal scene. The man was still struggling, but he couldn't break free. Ain Rand wanted the man to know that this was how his ancestors died. To protect Chi-in, Ain Rand fought fiercely with the Taoist priest. Chi-in looked at the severely injured Ain Rand and worriedly asked, "Stinky fox, how is your tail? Why is it still bleeding?" Remembering what the Taoist priest said about dying if stabbed by the knife, he became even more worried. Just then, Ain Rand grabbed Chi-in's hand. He looked back at the Taoist priest lying on the ground and said caringly to Chi-in, "It's good that my benefactor is not injured." Chi-in looked at Ain Rand, somewhat moved. Thinking that Ain Rand was a fox demon, he asked if he could heal himself. Ain Rand lowered his head and looked at his tail. Then he said, "It would be great if I could heal myself." Suddenly, with a stagger, Ain Rand collapsed onto Chi-in's lap. Chi-in worriedly called out, "Stinky fox." He asked him what was wrong, but got no response. Chi-in gently picked up Ain Rand's tail, feeling that its temperature was completely different from usual. But thankfully, he was still breathing. Chi-in gently took off his pajama top, thinking, regardless of whether this can stop the bleeding, I'll wrap it up first. After a while, Chi-in felt his body was a bit better than before, so he tried to see if he could get up. Chi-in, holding the injured Ain Rand, thought, although I was dragged into this because of the bracelet, but just now, Ain Rand covered my eyes because he was worried I would be scared. And with me injured, wouldn't it be easier for Ain Rand to get the bracelet back? But Ain Rand risked his life to save him. Just thinking about this, he looked at the stinky fox with his eyes tightly shut, not knowing what he was thinking. In his nightmares, he was just as the Taoist priest described, a heartless fox demon that feasted on people's hearts. But in reality, Chi-in felt that at that moment, he was different from before. Chi-in didn't know what had happened hundreds of years ago. But now, he didn't want a stinky fox to end up like this because of him. Thinking about everything that had just happened, Chi-in was angry that he didn't listen to the stinky fox at the beginning. There really was something strange about that room, so he prepared to get up. Just then, Chi-in saw a ghost firefly fly over. He waved his hand, trying to shoo it away. While protecting Ain Rand, he angrily yelled, "Get away from me, you stinky bugs." Suddenly, an insect landed on Chi-in's finger. Chi-in discovered that these seemed to be just ordinary fireflies. More and more fireflies gathered, appearing exceptionally bright. Chi-in noticed that all these fireflies were flying in one direction. Chi-in followed the direction the fireflies were leading. Chi-in thought the direction they were pointing to was the exit. Why was he going deeper and deeper? He suddenly thought, if I get lost and can't even find the way back, it's over. I don't want the stinky fox to die here. Chi-in gently cupped his hands together. The firefly in his palm emitted a faint glow. He opened his hands, wanting to know where these fireflies were going. Suddenly, Chi-in saw a plant where the fireflies were gathered. He was puzzled. What kind of plant has white fruits? While he was wondering, he suddenly heard a voice telling him that 6 berries could make Ain Rand's pain disappear. 1 berry, 2 berries. Chi-in wanted to pick more. He believed that 6 berries could make Ain Rand better. Chi-in suddenly felt like he had seen this plant somewhere before. He thought, no matter what, I'll pick it first. So he took off his shoes and carefully moved along the cliff, trying to pick the one that was further away. Suddenly, Chi-in's foot slipped and he fell into the water at the bottom of the cliff. Chi-in felt a piercing pain. He looked down and saw that his palm was already bleeding. Looking at his injured hand, he thought, what bad luck. But he didn't forget to yank off that white plant, thinking to himself, I hope this herb and its fruit are useful for Ain Rand's injury. Chi-in, holding all the fruits he had just picked, returned to Ain Rand's side. Chi-in had just tried applying the herb on Ain Rand and saw no reaction. He thought, will these be effective on the stinky fox? As he was thinking, he saw a large wound on the tail. Chi-in gently applied the herb to it. His eyes looked into the distance. He thought, I don't even have the strength to find the exit now. Then Chi-in put a berry to Ain Rand's lips, thinking, stinky fox, you're not allowed to die, because he didn't want to owe the stinky fox a favor. After an unknown amount of time, Ain Rand slowly opened his eyes, smelling a familiar scent of herbs. He slowly sat up, feeling for a moment that he couldn't tell if it was reality or a dream. Just then, Ain Rand suddenly saw his benefactor's frail body, curled up and sitting on the ground. Chi-in suddenly sneezed from the cold. He opened his eyes and saw that Ain Rand was awake. He happily shouted at Ain Rand. Just then, Ain Rand took Chi-in's injured hand and stared at it for a while. Chi-in saw that he seemed very worried about him. Then he heard Ain Rand ask him how his hand got injured. Chi-in quickly pulled back the hand that was being held, explaining that this small injury was nothing. The moment their hands touched, Ain Rand felt that something was wrong. He placed his hand on Chi-in's forehead. Then he asked Chi-in if he went into the water to pick herbs for him. Chi-in explained, I couldn't just watch you die. He told Ain Rand not to misunderstand. Suddenly, Chi-in sneezed and coughed nonstop again. Ain Rand quickly draped his tail over Chi-in, thinking, I didn't expect Xiao-in to be so worried about me. Seeing that Ain Rand was so talkative, Chi-in asked if his wound had already recovered. Ain Rand took the opportunity to present his tail to Chi-in. He wanted his benefactor to see. Chi-in looked and saw that the bleeding had stopped, but the wound was still large. He looked at Ain Rand with concern, not knowing if it would heal. Just as Chi-in finished speaking, he saw Ain Rand staring intently at him. The two of them looked at each other with warmth in their eyes. Chi-in nervously asked Ain Rand, what are you trying to do, staring at me like that? Ain Rand suddenly said, I'll tell my benefactor a way for the wound to heal faster. Chi-in was wondering what method it could be when his hand with the fox fur bracelet was grabbed by Ain Rand, who told Chi-in, just touch me and it will be fine. Chi-in recalled a previous scene and suddenly said angrily to the stinky fox, can you be serious? Ain Rand argued that he was being very serious. Just then, Chi-in started coughing again. Then he felt that he had been very dizzy since just now. Ain Rand saw Chi-in's weak state and asked if he could move. He told him that his body was like this because he had inhaled too much of the ghost firefly gas earlier. Chi-in said weakly that he was just a little sleepy. Ain Rand looked at Chi-in's tired face. He picked Chi-in up in his arms. Chi-in shyly asked, Stinky Fox, what are you trying to do? And said that he could walk. Ain Rand explained, if I let my benefactor walk by himself, I'm afraid it will take until next year. He told his benefactor to trust him. Chi-in muttered softly, not fully hearing what Chi-in said. Ain Rand placed his hand on his own shoulder and told Chi-in to be good. Ain Rand got up, ready to take Chi-in back. Lying in Ain Rand's arms, Chi-in suddenly thought that Taoist said foxes are evil, but it's not the fox demon who is wrong, if the dream is not reality. Thinking of this, Chi-in murmured Ain Rand's name. Then he said, thank you. Ain Rand looked down at his benefactor. He noticed the bracelet on his hand was slowly turning pink again. He thought, maybe this is a good fox. After getting injured while picking herbs for Ain Rand, Chi-in was carried back by Ain Rand. At this moment, Chi-in woke up sitting on the bed, coughing nonstop. He thought, my constitution is usually very good. It's all because of those ghost fireflies last night. After looking around, he realized he was actually in Ain Rand's room. Chi-in pushed open the door and heard a noisy sound. A little boy was tightly hugging Ayn Rand's leg, claiming that the person he saw in the middle of the night was Taoist Master Ayn Rand, and that he went missing because he was looking for him. A group of people started to discuss, urging the little boy to let go and speak properly first. The little boy suddenly pulled out a hanging scroll from behind him, unrolling it with a whoosh for everyone to see. He claimed that Ayn Rand looked exactly like the fox spirit in the painting at his home. Ayn Rand turned to look. The little boy continued, "He is my family's Taoist master, the nine-tailed fox demon he has been hunting." Everyone started discussing again. Someone was heard saying he really did look a bit like the one in the painting. A woman took the scroll and looked at it carefully. She said that as soon as she came to the village, she heard the Taoist master talk about this painting. If it's not the same person, how could the demon mark on his neck be exactly the same? Everyone whispered among themselves. Someone said that if you look closely, he looks as sinister as the one in the painting. Even the mole matches. Could it really be such a coincidence? Someone else suspected that what the child said was true. Ayn Rand explained that everyone had misunderstood. It was his first time in the village, and he was here to help. He didn't know the Taoist master everyone was talking about or why he had this painting. He didn't understand why these people suddenly suspected him. The little boy was relentless, insisting that Ayn Rand had killed his Taoist master and then bit down hard on Ayn Rand's leg. Ayn Rand clenched his fist in pain. At this moment, Chi-in walked over and stood by Ayn Rand's side, saying, "This is just my classmate. He came with me." Then Chi-in took Ayn Rand's hand and whispered to Ayn Rand, "Don't act rashly." Ayn Rand listened to Chi-in's words, his brow relaxed, and he said, "Oh." The woman who spoke earlier continued, "This kid doesn't look like a good person." She reminded Chi-in to be careful. After hearing this, Chi-in explained, "A single painting doesn't prove anything." Then he took out his phone and said Ayn Rand had also been a model and had artistic photos taken. There were plenty of people who had his picture. Then he continued to explain, "It's the 21st century. Who still believes there are demons in this world?" Ayn Rand secretly glanced at Chi-in, seeing that his face and ears were bright red from telling lies. Hearing Chi-in say this, everyone began to stop doubting. They told the little boy that he had wrongly accused this big brother. The auntie who picked blueberries with them also felt that Chi-in and Ayn Rand had helped everyone pick a lot of blueberries. So how could they have bad intentions? Ayn Rand looked down at the little boy and said, "How can a nine-tailed fox demon look as human as I do? If you can't bear for him to leave, I'll come and play more often in the future." The little boy suddenly felt a chill and shouted, "This is a fox demon." Everyone else thought the child was just throwing a tantrum and even told him to apologize to Ayn Rand. But Ayn Rand said it was not necessary, as he would be leaving in a moment. The adults quickly pulled the little boy away. The auntie said embarrassedly that they had caused them trouble just now. So she prepared to bring over the bags of blueberries from before for them to take home and eat. Ayn Rand and Chi-in watched the crowd disperse and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Remembering that he was still holding Ayn Rand's hand, he quickly let go and complained to Ayn Rand, "How did you get into trouble so early in the morning?" Ayn Rand happily expressed his thanks to his benefactor. Chi-in explained, "Since you came with me, I couldn't just stand by and do nothing." Thinking about how Ayn Rand had always been obedient before, he asked him why he got into a fight this time. But Ayn Rand said he didn't mind. Chi-in looked at Ayn Rand and was momentarily distracted. Suddenly, he looked around, remembering the Taoist priest from last night. He whispered to Ayn Rand, "Did he really die? Is he still in that forest? What if he's discovered?" Ayn Rand quickly comforted Chi-in, "Don't be afraid. Those ghost fireflies will take care of his body." He said the matter had been explained. "I won't let my benefactor worry about these things anymore." Chi-in thought to himself, "Wasn't I the one who got dragged into this?" But Ayn Rand looked completely innocent and harmless. Thinking of this, Chi-in felt a fire of anger rise in his heart. He said he was going to wait for the bus, then turned and left without waiting for Ayn Rand to follow, muttering to himself, "If he's so sentimental, I'll just leave him here alone." Just then, Ayn Rand heard a strange whooshing sound coming from the forest behind him. Ayn Rand stood there, somewhat puzzled. One day, Chi-in received a message from his coach on his phone. It turned out Chi-in hadn't been to the dojang for classes for almost a month. Since Chi-in was free in the morning, he prepared to go practice for a while. Ayn Rand sat beside him and asked with confusion, "Is this the one you mentioned before?" Then he expressed some disbelief that Chi-in knew Taekwondo. Without looking up, Chi-in said he started practicing when he began having nightmares about the fox. If Ayn Rand didn't use his powers, he might not necessarily win against him. Ayn Rand looked at Chi-in's slender figure and really wanted to see it for himself. Chi-in was angry that Ayn Rand was looking down on him. In the Taekwondo dojang, Ayn Rand, dressed in a taekwondo uniform, walked over and asked, "Benefactor, do you really want to compete with me?" Chi-in was not afraid and said to the stinky fox, "Stop showing off over there." Then he patted the equipment next to him. Just as Ian Ran was about to ask if this was what he practiced with, he saw Chi-in kick out with a bang. The equipment spun around from Chi-in's kick. Ian Ran was stunned for a moment. Then, not to be outdone, he stretched his neck. Chi-in slowly lowered his leg. Ian Ran asked Chi-in, "Why are you being so fierce with me?" Chi-in politely explained, "It's a habit." Then he continued, "Your attitude wasn't like this when you were provoking me just now." In Ian Ran's eyes, Chi-in seemed to be saying to him, "Come on, stinky fox, let's see how I beat you into submission." Thinking of this, Ian Ran couldn't help but chuckle to himself. Chi-in, however, didn't understand what the stinky fox had been laughing about from the beginning. Ian Ran swung his tail. Chi-in blocked it with his arm, warning Ian Ran, "No tails allowed. Using your tail is 0 points." Ian Ran promised not to use it on his benefactor and then retracted his tail. Suddenly, Chi-in kicked Ian Ran's shoulder. Luckily, Ian Ran reacted quickly enough and blocked the blow with his arm. He thought to himself, "It seems Chi-in is serious." Suddenly, Ian Ran felt a flurry of punches, followed by a flurry of kicks. Chi-in thought to himself, "I've been waiting for this day for a long time." After Ian Ran blocked another of Chi-in's attacks with his arm, he questioned Chi-in, "Doesn't my benefactor have any consideration for my injury from last night? He shouldn't have brought it up." As soon as Chi-in heard Ian Ran say that, he said angrily, "Isn't it because of you that the Taoist priest found me?" As Chi-in complained that all his bad luck was because of Ian Ran, he kicked out again. Ian Ran firmly grabbed his leg. Ian Ran leaned in and explained, "I didn't do it on purpose either." At this moment, Ian Ran pulled hard. Chi-in lost his balance and was pinned down by Ian Ran. Chi-in's hands were firmly pressed to the ground by Ian Ran. Ian Ran looked down at Chi-in, whom he had defeated. Just then, Chi-in pushed up hard with his legs. Ian Ran felt a wave of pain. Chi-in used force again with a hook and sat on top of Ian Ran. Chi-in's arms pressed down tightly on Ian Ran's shoulders. He raised the arm with the bracelet high, proudly showing off his victory to Ian Ran. At this moment, he finally let out a sigh of relief and asked Ian Ran, "How about that?" Ian Ran stared at Chi-in and gulped with a loud sound. Then he coughed a few times and stopped looking directly at Chi-in. Just as Chi-in was wondering about Ian Ran's expression, Ian Ran suddenly told him his clothes had come loose. Chi-in hurriedly turned around. He straightened his clothes. Then Ian Ran said teasingly, "These clothes can't handle roughhousing." At this moment, the air seemed to become exceptionally quiet. Ian Ran, a little at a loss, called out, "Benefactor, Chi-in." At this moment, he was so red-faced he couldn't speak. The two of them sat awkwardly on the ground. Ian Ran explained that he didn't actually see anything. Then he imagined some lewd images and turned away, thinking, "Even I don't believe that." He didn't know what kind of innocent act he was putting on. Suddenly, Ian Ran lifted his own clothes and explained to Chi-in that it was a mistake just now. "If it's a big deal, I'll let you look at me too." But Chi-in turned around and asked, "What are you being so coy about over there?" While tightening his belt, he told Ian Ran not to be so wishy-washy. Ian Ran explained that wasn't what he meant, not forgetting to sneak a peek. When Chi noticed, he flew into a rage and yelled at Ian Ran, "What the hell are you looking at? Are you asking for a beating?" Ian Ran looked at Chi-in and deliberately provoked him, asking if he wanted another round. Chi-in turned back and stared at Ian Ran. Then Ian Ran showed a brilliant smile and said, "How could I possibly beat my benefactor?" Then he rubbed the spot where he had just been hit and said to Chi-in, "It still hurts now. You really show no mercy." Chi-in retorted, "What mercy is there between us?" The two of them engaged in some playful banter. Chi-in then reminded Ian Ran to cut the crap and not to think that the two of them were already very close. Seeing this, Ian Ran quickly showed concern, asking if his benefactor was tired. He prepared to go buy some water and let Chi-in rest here for a while. Chi-in sat in the room and heard the door click shut. The Taekwondo dojang, with only Chi-in in it, seemed exceptionally empty. Chi-in squeezed his shoulders. He thought irritably, "How could I let the stinky fox see that?" Thinking about his expression just now, it probably wasn't too exaggerated, right? Outside the Taekwondo dojang, Ian Ran was asking if they had any blueberry-flavored drinks. At this moment, Chi-in looked up and told himself he didn't want to keep worrying about such things. The blueberry-flavored drink was ready. The clerk handed it to Ian Ran. Ian Ran was in a daze at this moment. Chi-in thought, "As long as I don't bring it up, the stinky fox will probably forget about it." Ian Ran, absent-minded, was also thinking about what had just happened. He seemed to have suddenly thought of something. It turned out Ayn Rand remembered the mole on Chi Yin's chest from just now. It seemed to be a cinnabar-colored mole. Ayn Rand suddenly realized that not only had he not forgotten, but he even remembered the color of the mole clearly. At this moment, the clerk reminded him again, "Sir, it's time to pay." Ayn Rand went to buy a drink for his benefactor. He finally returned with the drink. At this time, Ayn Rand found that Chi Yin had already changed his clothes and was packed and ready to go. He turned and asked Ayn Rand why he was still hanging around here. It turned out the class group chat had tagged Ayn Rand to submit a PPT. He hadn't even replied to the message. Ayn Rand looked blank and asked Chi Yin why he had to reply to the message. Chi Yin angrily yelled at him that Ayn Rand was the class president, and when the classmates couldn't find him, they came looking for Chi Yin. But Ayn Rand replied that he only read his benefactor's messages and not anyone else's. Chi Yin told him that he had to be responsible no matter what. Ayn Rand then shamelessly asked Chi Yin to teach him, promising to study diligently. At the school gate, Chi Yin begged the gatekeeper grandpa to let him go in to get a USB drive, explaining that he forgot to copy a file and would be out in a moment and that he wouldn't be caught. The gatekeeper grandpa looked around and reminded Chi Yin to be quick. When they arrived at the computer lab and opened the door, Chi Yin remembered that the computer labs around here were locked. As the two were thinking, "Did we come here for nothing?" they suddenly saw the door of classroom on the other side of the hallway open, and a teacher walked out. A large bunch of keys dangled and jingled from his waist. Ayn Rand then called out. The teacher looked back at Ayn Rand. With one hand in his pocket, he pointed to the computer lab with the other and continued to ask, "Do you have a key for this? If you do, open the door." Chi Yin embarrassedly called out to Ayn Rand, "Don't just ask a passerby for a key." Just then, the teacher walked closer and pointed at the two of them. He scolded them. "What are you doing here not wearing school uniforms?" Chi Yin took a closer look and saw it was actually Principal's son. Then he stammered, not yet having figured out how to explain. Ayn Rand then said impolitely, "We need to get in. If you have the key, please open the door." The principal slapped Ayn Rand on the head with his book and angrily asked, "Which class are you from? How dare you speak like that?" Seeing that things were not looking good, Chi Yin quickly stood in front of Ayn Rand and apologized to the principal, explaining that they just wanted to go into the computer lab to copy some files, but the door was locked. The principal asked Chi Yin, "You want to get into the computer lab, right?" The principal, who was getting angrier just thinking about it, how could he possibly forgive them so easily? Sure enough, in the computer lab, the principal angrily said, "Since you're in, you might as well finish compiling the data for your grade before you leave." Chi Yin never expected that he would also have to count the number of mops and board erasers. Ayn Rand, on the other hand, was lost in thought. Then his gaze shifted to the principal. When the principal saw this, he questioned Ayn Rand, "What are you staring at me for? Are you not convinced?" With a slap, the book in his hand once again hit Ayn Rand on the head. He then scolded Ayn Rand for relying on his somewhat good looks to be popular in class and for not respecting the teachers and the principal. So he demanded that Chi Yin watch Ayn Rand hold a horse stance at the door for 10 minutes before going back in together. Ayn Rand wanted to step forward, but was stopped by Chi Yin, who promised the principal that he would supervise him well. Chi Yin looked at Ayn Rand's stubbornness, afraid that the principal would punish them again. He anxiously mouthed for him to squat quickly. Ayn Rand had no choice but to obey the order. The principal scolded him to do it properly, saying he would come back to check later. Watching the principal walk away, the two of them finally breathed a sigh of relief. Chi Yin saw Ayn Rand leaning against the wall and poked him, asking why he wasn't squatting anymore. Ayn Rand asked in return, "Does my benefactor really want to watch me squat for 10 minutes? Chi Yin replied that he had just promised the principal to supervise him well. Ayn Rand then said he was willing to listen to his benefactor and obediently squatted down. Chi Yin felt that the stinky fox was acting strange. He moved a little closer and caringly asked if Ayn Rand's injury would be okay. Chi Yin suddenly felt that those people no longer seemed to be affected by Ayn Rand's enchantment. Ayn Rand continued to squat, stunned for a moment. He explained, "My benefactor doesn't like me using this ability. I won't use it in the future. Will that make my benefactor happy?" Chi Yin felt a bit complicated and couldn't speak. He deliberately avoided Ayn Rand's gaze and asked when he had become so obedient. Ayn Rand recalled that after being stabbed by the Taoist priest, although he used herbs to save his life, he couldn't save those abilities. He looked down at his tail, which was still not flexible enough. He glanced at Chi Yin, thinking, "I couldn't win him over before, and now it's even harder." At this moment, Chi Yin was so sleepy he could barely lift his head, constantly dozing off. Ayn Rand felt that he was already unable to attract Chi Yin, and with his enchantment ability gone, he was just the same as before. He recalled how Chi-in defended him at the blueberry orchard and how he had just shielded him from the principal. Could it be that Chi-in's heart had softened after that night? As he was thinking, he saw Chi-in suddenly become drowsy and nod off. In-ran quickly extended his arm. He gently supported Chi-in's face, quietly feeling the warmth of Chi-in's cheek. Chi-in slowly opened his eyes. In-ran asked him if he was sleepy. Chi-in was instantly startled awake. How did I almost fall asleep? He then patted his face, muttering, just a little more and the tally will be done, and reminded the stinky fox not to get sleepy either. In-ran replied that he wasn't sleepy at all, but his benefactor was probably sleepy enough. As he was speaking, Chi-in let out another big yawn. In-ran looked at the sleepy Chi-in at this moment, his cheeks slightly flushed. He suddenly found that the way he yawned was like a little kitten. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them finally returned home. Chi-in, after closing the door, changed into his slippers. Chi-in complained, "How did it get so late? I'm dead tired." He then started to blame In-ran. "Why did you have to provoke the principal for no reason?" In-ran told his benefactor to go rest first if he was tired. After speaking, Chi-in watched In-ran walk away, thinking the stinky fox is really treating this place like his own home. Chi-in lay on the sofa and stretched lazily. Chi-in thought about the day, feeling like he had done a lot, and drowsily fell asleep. In a daze, he seemed to hear In-ran calling his name. Then the voice became clearer. Chi-in woke up with a start and angrily asked In-ran what he wanted. Chi-in sat up and heard In-ran ask him about something he didn't know how to operate. So he went over to see what he was doing. He had just told him to go to bed early. In-ran then asked if this symbol meant hot or cold water. Chi-in suddenly saw something and was too shocked to speak. In-ran was standing naked in the bathroom, saying to himself, "My tail can only use warm water now." Chi-in quickly covered his eyes and loudly questioned In-ran why he wasn't wearing any clothes. Chi-in sat back on the sofa, angrily thinking, was the stinky fox doing that on purpose? He's so smart. How could he not know how to turn on the hot water switch? Thinking about when he was helping In-ran adjust the water temperature just now, he saw the tattoo on In-ran's body. Why did it feel somewhat familiar? As Chi-in was thinking, In-ran suddenly sat down next to him and asked if he was still thinking about what happened just now. Seeing the slight blush on Chi-in's face, he quickly explained, "It's okay. My benefactor can remember it anytime." Then he said with a wicked smile, "After all, I haven't forgotten what happened at the Taekwondo dojang either." Hearing In-ran say this, Chi-in's face was already beet red. After a moment of embarrassment, he angrily said to In-ran, "Stop being so full of yourself. I won't remember what just happened." After speaking, he prepared to go wash up, but was pulled back by In-ran, with the reason that there was still something left to do. Saying that, he pulled Chi-in's hand and sat back down on the sofa. Chi-in nervously asked him what he was doing. In-ran then took out a small bottle of conditioning lotion, dripped it onto Chi-in's bracelet, and gently rubbed it. She looked up, watching In-ran's every move. In-ran continued to stroke it gently, explaining that it was used to protect the tail. Chi-in quickly pulled her hand back, saying she would do it herself. While rubbing the bracelet on her hand, she thought, what kind of precious fox fur needs conditioning? To think I'm inexplicably helping this stinky fox with his fur care, because this thing shouldn't have been on her hand in the first place. Just as she was thinking, Chi-in suddenly felt something. Looking down, she suddenly noticed the fox fur was gradually turning pink. As Chi-in was thinking, she suddenly felt a foxtail brush past her from behind. She turned around, about to ask him something, and saw In-ran lying nearby. Noticing Chi-in was looking at him, he took the initiative to say he was listening, then asked her what was wrong. Chi-in stared at In-ran in a daze. She seemed to sense In-ran's expression was indescribably different from his earlier flirtatious question. So she turned and told In-ran she had finished applying it for him and not to ask for her help again. In-ran squinted at Chi-in, who was preparing to leave. Suddenly, he wrapped her up with his tail. Sensing Chi-in's nervousness, In-ran comforted his benefactor, telling her not to panic. Chi-in buried her blushing face in her chest. For some reason, the pinkish fox fur on her hand touched In-ran's tail. The air was filled with the fragrance of the conditioning lotion. It was really too strange. In-ran grabbed Chi-in's hand. He said it wasn't even spread evenly yet. "Is my benefactor leaving already?" Chi-in stared at In-ran, thinking it must be because she touched the fox fur that the atmosphere became like this. So she angrily told the stinky fox to cut it out and not even think about seducing her. But In-ran paid no mind to what Chi-in was saying. At this moment, with his clothes in disarray, he stared at Chi-in, asking in return, does she think he's trying to seduce her? In-ran wrapped Chi-in with his tail and Chi-Een blocked with her hands. She glanced at the bracelet and told Ayn Rand that just like last time, it had inexplicably turned pink again. Hearing Chi-Een say this, Ayn Rand was stunned for a moment. Then, with a mischievous smile, he teased, so Xiao-Yin still remembers the first time she touched him. Chi-Yin's face turned bright red, and she told Ayn Rand not to be so shameless. Then she pointed at his tail, saying she only reluctantly helped apply it because she saw he was injured and told him to let go quickly. Ayn Rand, with a smile, said, okay, of course. Then he released his tail. He then asked Chi-Een if she would help him apply it to his tail in the future. Chi-Een rolled her eyes at him and told him to dream on. Ayn Rand argued slyly, his reason being that the piece of tail was on Xiao-Yin's hand, so there was no other way. Chi-Een wouldn't listen to what he was saying and scurried away. Chi-Een slammed the door shut with a bang and stood there blankly. She thought, could it be that whenever I touch the fox fur, it turns pink? It's not even spread evenly yet, and my benefactor is already leaving. She thought about what Ayn Rand had just said. Chi-Een seemed to understand. She was so angry, she felt like she was about to explode. She thought, what kind of perverted, color-changing fox fur is this? Chi-Een pinched her ears, thinking about Ayn Rand's charm. Has his power really disappeared? In the room, Ayn Rand was lying alone on the sofa. He muttered to himself, I originally wanted to tease Chi-Een, so how did I end up getting excited myself? On second thought, it's been who knows how many years. That once familiar thrill was something he only felt when he devoured human hearts. But with Chi-Een, just a light touch was enough to experience it. Ayn Rand was a little puzzled. He thought, could it be that it's only because of her that I'm holding back like this? With a gentle flick of his tail, he thought, the more it's like this, the more I can't help but want to know more about her. Night fell. Chi-Een was lying on her bed, looking at a message on her phone. It was from the Class 1 to 6 group chat. A new message had arrived. Ayn Rand was tagged, asking if he had finished the PPT. Chi-Een suddenly remembered she had completely forgotten about this. She looked towards the door, thinking that after copying the data that day, she had also taught him how to use the computer. But she didn't know if he could actually do it, and he hadn't asked. After a moment of worry, Chi-Een thought again that it was his responsibility. What does it have to do with me? I'm not going to bother with him. Then she tiptoed out of the room, wanting to see what Ayn Rand was doing. She saw Ayn Rand sitting alone on the sofa downstairs. Chi-Een looked a bit puzzled at Yin's serious expression. Rand, thinking, could he be working on the PPT? He looks quite serious. Did I misjudge him? So she thought about quietly sneaking back to her room. Just as she bent down to sneak away, Chi-Yin's phone suddenly vibrated. Squatting on the floor, she took out her phone to see what the message was. Taking a closer look, it was a photo sent by Ayn Rand. He was asking in the group chat when this photo was taken. Chi-Yin thought, what on earth is this guy doing? What is he looking at? At that moment, Ayn Rand was using the mouse to zoom in on that photo in the group album. He saw clearly that the photo was of Chi-Yin and Xiao Sun. They were just standing there, not speaking. The next day, Chi-Een was holding a few boxes of blueberries, ready to go to school. She told Ayn Rand they were going to be late. Ayn Rand curiously asked Xiao-Een who the blueberries were for. Chi-Een didn't have time to answer his question. As she walked, she teased Ayn Rand that he didn't seem tired even after staying up all night. Do all foxes have this much energy? And she reminded Ayn Rand to hurry up. In the classroom, Chi-Een handed a box of the blueberries she brought to Lulu. Lulu happily expressed her thanks for getting to enjoy free blueberries again. Just as Chi-Een was about to deliver the rest, she was pulled back by Ayn Rand. It turned out Ayn Rand saw that Chi-Een had already given out several portions. This last portion was so large. He shamelessly asked if it was saved for him. Chi-Een told Ayn Rand that she had given him some before. Wasn't that enough? Ayn Rand had no choice but to tactfully let go of Chi-Yin's hand. Then he watched Chi-Een walk to the front of the classroom, just staring as she left the room. At this moment, Ayn Rand noticed Lulu quietly moving towards him. In the bustling classroom, Xiao Sun was looking down at something. Suddenly, he heard someone calling his name. Looking up, he saw Chi-Een handing him blueberries. Xiao Sun happily asked Chi-Een if she went blueberry picking again over the weekend. Chi-Een generously explained that she had said she would treat Xiao Sun to a meal last time, but never had the time. So she was giving him these blueberries first. She would definitely treat him to a meal in a few days when she had time. Hearing Chi-Een say this, Xiao Sun seemed to be thinking about something. His fingers gently rubbed the blueberry box. It turned out Xiao Sun wanted to ask Chi-Een if she and Ayn Rand lived in the same neighborhood, because he always saw the two of them coming to school together. Chi-Een didn't expect Xiao Sun to ask this, so she said that Ayn Rand was her neighbor. Then she explained that it was probably because of the school district district housing, so everyone lived quite close. Xiao Sun opened the blueberry box, picked one up, and put it in his mouth. Then he said the blueberries tasted very good and said thank you to Chi-Yin. Over here in the classroom, Lulu was chatting with someone, saying she wasn't too sure either. It was Ayn Rand asking her if she knew who Chi-Yin was close to. Lulu retorted by asking Ayn Rand, since he followed Chi-Yin around every day, how could he not know who Chi-Yin was close to? At this point, Lulu started to boast. She wasn't sure about others, but besides them, she was definitely the one with the best relationship with Chi-Yin. Then she continued, saying that many people were pursuing Xiao-Yin, but she wasn't interested in any of them. And she praised Chi-Yin for being so cool, as expected of Xiao-Yin. Hearing Lulu say this was, of course, the answer Ayn Rand most wanted to hear. Lulu then continued to gossip, saying she had just seen Chi-Yin take that full box of blueberries to the dance class. Then she said speculatively, that box of blueberries must be for Xiao Sun. When Ayn Rand heard this, he felt a wave of displeasure. He remembered the photo in the group album from last night. It seemed to be from the last sports meet. Lulu continued, saying that so many people surrounded Xiao-Yin, but she was most concerned about her and Xiao Sun. She explained that although they didn't hang out very frequently, there was a strange spark between them. Aren't they the perfect example of a handsome man and a beautiful woman? There was another reason. She saw that the blueberries Xiao-Yin gave to Xiao Sun were especially full. Before Lulu could finish, Ayn Rand's face instantly darkened. When Lulu noticed the class president's face had turned foul, she didn't dare to speak. Ayn Rand immediately smiled and asked Lulu if her feeling was wrong. Because to him, the handsome man and beautiful woman were himself and Chi-Yin. Lulu was speechless for a moment. Although she admitted the class president was indeed very handsome, it also depended on the person. It turned out Lulu's reason was that she felt the class president was dangerously handsome and seemed like the type to cheat. After saying that, she subconsciously made an excuse that she had something to do and slipped away. Ayn Rand believed that the disappearance of his charm ability didn't mean he had lost. Then he imagined Chi-Yin hugging him from behind, saying that she actually cared more about him, not Xiao Sun. Ayn Rand confidently believed that he and Chi-Yin were a better match. During gym class, Chi-Yin was doing warm-up exercises on the side when she heard some students behind her discussing something. Chi-Yin turned her head. It was a few girls from another class, infatuatedly discussing how handsome Ayn Rand was, feeling like he was a male fox spirit. At this moment, Ayn Rand was drinking water on the side. When Chi-Yin saw Ayn Rand look over, she quickly averted her gaze. Ayn Rand lowered his head and gently wiped the water from the corner of his mouth. The few infatuated girls started screaming excitedly. Chi-Yin turned around, asking Lulu to help her with a back stretch, while thinking, what is that stinky fox flirting for over there? Turning her head, she heard students from both classes clamoring about a sit-up competition on the other side. The teacher saw that Class 5 only had 6 students and said that regardless of which class won, he would treat everyone to barbecue afterward. At this time, a student from Class 5 told the teacher that they would also send the hidden talent, Xiao Sun, to participate. Then he patted Xiao Sun's shoulder to encourage him. Although Teacher Zhang isn't here, we still have to bring honor to the class. The teacher then announced that Class 5 would add one more person, Xiao Sun. Then he said his own class was still short one person and asked who wanted to volunteer. Ayn Rand raised his hand enthusiastically. When the teacher saw it was Ayn Rand, he praised him, not bad, not bad. Your courage is commendable. Lulu pulled Xiao-Yin and ran towards the crowd that had gathered to watch the competition. Ayn Rand said with a relaxed expression, with me here, teacher, don't worry. Xiao Sun, on the other hand, thought with full confidence that he would definitely win this time. 2 minutes had already passed in the sit-up competition. Both Xiao Sun and Ayn Rand were still going very fast. The students were discussing on the side. Usually, Xiao Sun seems so quiet. I didn't expect him to be this amazing. A female student, infatuated, told her companion to look at Ayn Rand's clothes. It turned out Ayn Rand's shirt had rolled up, revealing his charming abs. This is Ayn Rand's. His partner looked at Ayn Rand's abs and exclaimed, bro, your physique is pretty awesome. But Ayn Rand, afraid that some people might not see him, was not at all modest and asked his partner to move aside a bit so as not to block him. Chi-Yin listened to the students around her discussing Ayn Rand's looks and physique, thinking that Stinky Fox must be doing this on purpose again. Lulu asked Chi-Yin if she could feel it. Xiao Sun and Ayn Rand were in a frantic PK. Then she wondered why she herself was so excited. Chi-Yin, however, said that he never seemed to have a calm moment. Then she turned to go rest for a bit. Seeing Chi-Yin leave, Lulu called for her to wait. As she left, she didn't forget to look back for a last glance then peeked again at class president Ain Rand's dazzling abs. At this moment, the teacher blew the whistle to end the competition. He announced the end of the competition and marveled at what students these days eat to grow up. It really opened my eyes. Truly amazing. It was time to announce the results. Xiao Sun did 368 in 5 minutes. Class 5 had a total of 1,002. The students exclaimed that Xiao Sun was truly a hidden talent. Ain Rand did 410 in 5 minutes. Class 6 had a total of 998. Again, there were voices of disbelief from everyone. To think that in the end, Class 6 lost by just a few. The teacher patted Ain Rand's shoulder, praising him as worthy of being his student. Ain Rand humbly said it was nothing, then lifted his shirt to wipe the sweat from his cheek. Over here, the female students went wild. Lulu said in Xiao Yin's ear, it was actually Ain Rand who did the most. At this moment, Chi Yin was lost in thought. Ain Rand said from the side that he felt like he won anyway. Chi Yin stood there, hearing students say that the competition between Xiao Sun and Ain Rand was too exciting. Other students said that it was one thing for Ain Rand to be handsome, but his abs were truly to die for. With complicated feelings, Chi Yin picked up her cup and took a sip of water. Lulu sat next to Chi Yin, muttering, "It's so strange." The reason was that she felt Ain Rand had inexplicably ended up competing with Xiao Sun. Although the competition was exciting, she always felt they had a motive, especially Ain Rand. Hearing her say this, Chi Yin asked her what motive it could be. Lulu, as if she had discovered a secret, told Chi Yin that Ain Rand likes her. Chi Yin awkwardly asked Lulu what she was talking about. The reason Lulu said this was, of course, because Ain Rand had asked her before, and he told Lulu that he and Chi Yin were the handsome man and beautiful woman. Chi Yin pretended to be calm and drank her water, explaining that he's just like that, don't take it seriously. Lulu carefully noticed that something was off with Chi Yin and asked why she was blushing when she wasn't usually like this. Chi Yin could only use the excuse that it was too hot after just exercising. She thought, what on earth did that stinky fox say to Lulu? Just as she was thinking, her hand was grabbed by Lulu. Chi Yin looked puzzled. She saw Lulu looking at her seriously. It turned out she had something to ask Chi Yin. On the other side of the field, Xiao Sun and Ain Rand were standing there. Xiao Sun asked Ain Rand what his purpose was in getting close to Chi Yin. Ain Rand asked Xiao Sun the same question, wanted to know what Xiao Sun's purpose was in getting close to Chi Yin. Xiao Sun pushed up his glasses and continued to ask Ain Rand if he should call him Ain Rand, or should he call him Nine-Tailed Fox. Over here, it turned out Lulu was curious to know, between Xiao Sun and Ain Rand, who Chi Yin liked more. When Chi Yin heard Lulu ask if she liked Xiao Sun or Ain Rand, she froze for a moment. When she got home, it was already very late. Chi Yin opened the door. She casually tossed her bag aside and collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted. But her mind was still on Lulu's question from earlier. Thinking about how Lulu started gossiping again, she had deliberately avoided it by telling Lulu, "Why do you have so many questions every day?" Lying on the sofa, Chi Yin grumbled to herself again. That gym class had made the whole day restless. I don't know what that stinky fox is up to every day. Chi Yin was afraid he would cause more trouble for her, so she didn't want him to go to school anymore. Just as she was thinking, she received a message from Ain Rand, telling Chi Yin he was going out for a bit tonight and telling her not to miss him too much. Looking at the message on her phone, Chi Yin thought again of what Lulu said, that Ain Rand clearly liked her. She sat up straight on the sofa with a shocked expression, then got angry at herself for keep thinking about that sentence. She raised her hand, thinking it's all because of this bracelet. The stinky fox is always revolving around this. Suddenly, Chi Yin felt that something was not right. She stared at the round, sparkling fox charm on the bracelet. She thought, did the fox look this realistic before? Looking at it now, it seemed just like a real one, and it looks exactly the same as the fox in my nightmares. But for a moment, just now, Chi Yin felt that it didn't seem as ferocious as in the nightmares. She only sensed fragility and gentleness. On the other side, Ain Rand suddenly shivered, as if he felt Chi Yin touching him. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from his friend, Shiryu, complaining that Ain Rand's phone was just for show. He didn't even save his number. Ain Rand, however, used the excuse that he couldn't find Shiryu to add him and told Shiryu to just come find him. Shiryu then mocked Ain Rand, asking if he only remembered that little girl's home. Then Ain Rand said for Shiryu to help him look up a person. This person was Xiao Sun from their school. Shiryu immediately agreed. No problem, but he had to know what was up with this person. It turned out that a few hours earlier, Xiao Sun had threatened Ain Rand on the field. If he had impure motives towards Chi Yin, Chi-Yin, he wouldn't just stand by and do nothing. Ayn Rand looked disdainful, asking Xiao Sun what right he had to say this to him. Then he continued, speaking so shamelessly, "Are you not going to pretend to be an ordinary human anymore?" Xiao Sun, as if seeing through everything, said that from the first moment he saw Ayn Rand, he knew he wasn't human. But so what? The scene of their first meeting flashed through his mind. Xiao Sun said he had his reasons for being by Chi-Yin's side. Ayn Rand, not to be outdone, said that Xiao Sun couldn't stop him from doing anything either. Xiao Sun said in a mocking tone, "The arrogance and shamelessness of the nine-tailed fox is indeed just as the gods described." And he asked Ayn Rand if he knew the source of the nightmares that had been plaguing Chi-Yin. Then he patted his own shoulder, teasing that Ayn Rand probably never thought about these things. Seeing Ayn Rand remain silent, he continued, saying that Ayn Rand was just unilaterally pestering Chi-Yin, but had never understood her. The two of them stared at each other. Ayn Rand sneered and retorted, "Since Xiao Sun says so, it's as if he understands Chi-Yin very well." Xiao Sun pushed up his glasses and said that the secrets he knew were indeed slightly better than Ayn Rand's. At this moment, Ayn Rand hung up the phone. He thought about that conversation with Xiao Sun, wondering how Xiao Sun could be so familiar with Chi-Yin's past. He lowered his head and thought, what could be the source of Chi-Yin's fox nightmares? He wondered if it was related to his past experience of devouring human hearts. Was it just a coincidence that she was the one who found the bracelet? Ayn Rand returned home and saw Chi-Yin had already fallen asleep at the table. Beside her was an unfinished puzzle. He walked over and picked up a puzzle piece that had fallen on the floor. He looked up again at the sleeping Chi-Yin and suddenly thought of the woman in his dreams. Scene after scene from the dream flashed through his mind. Ayn Rand pressed his forehead, feeling a bit dazed. After a while, Ayn Rand came back to his senses and rubbed his head. He looked again at the still, soundly asleep Chi-Yin, walked to the window, and drew the curtains for her. Then he picked up the puzzle piece that had just fallen, bent down, and carefully brushed the hair away from Chi-Yin's face. Looking at the same eyebrows and eyes as the woman in his dream, the same mole under her eye, he thought, could it be her? Just then, Chi-Yin opened her eyes and saw Ayn Rand beside her. Ayn Rand continued to gently stroke her hair. Chi-Yin, still drowsy with sleep, greeted Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand's hand suddenly paused. The air seemed to stand still. The bracelet slowly began to turn pink again. Ayn Rand looked down, thinking to himself that his relationship with Chi-Yin was probably not as simple as it seemed now. Chi-Yin felt that Ayn Rand's gaze was a bit strange. Just then, Ayn Rand suddenly lowered his head and moved closer to Chi-Yin, gently asking what Chi-Yin's secret was. Chi-Yin opened her sleepy eyes, ready to speak. Ayn Rand's serious expression was full of anticipation. But Chi-Yin closed her eyes, said, "I don't want to tell you," and fell back asleep. Ayn Rand thought to himself, what was I even expecting? Looking at the sleeping Chi-Yin, he thought that although she didn't say, he would eventually understand her better. Ayn Rand had already made his calculations. The secret and the benefactor would both be his sooner or later. At this moment, Chi-Yin was having that nightmare again. Entangled by the fox, she asked in confusion why it kept pestering her. The fox demon's tail suddenly wrapped around Chi-Yin, and Chi-Yin screamed, "Don't." But the fox demon's tail kept rubbing against Chi-Yin's body. Chi-Yin, however, unconsciously called out Ayn Rand's name. In her dream, Chi-Yin looked at the fox demon beside her. Just then, the fox demon tilted its head and asked, "Benefactor, were you calling me?" Chi-Yin looked at the fox demon in confusion. Then she asked in disbelief, "Are you really Ayn Rand?" But she was pulled into an embrace by the fox demon. He then comforted Chi-Yin, telling her not to be afraid now that he was here. The fox demon holding Chi-Yin explained that he would not harm her. Chi-Yin seemed to feel much more at ease. At that moment, Chi-Yin was mumbling "stinky fox" in her sleep. Slowly opening her eyes, she sat up abruptly, unable to believe she would have such a dream. What made her even more incredulous was that she would actually call out Ayn Rand's name in her dream, making her think it was all just a hallucination. But thinking about Ayn Rand's appearance in the dream, why did she feel a sense of peace? Puzzled, she lifted the blanket covering her, wondering if he was the one who had covered her. Dressed, Chi-Yin was still thinking that Ayn Rand seemed to have said something to her last night, but she couldn't remember what. A sudden fog in her mind. So that's why I dreamed of the stinky fox. It definitely wasn't just a random dream about those things. In the bustling school campus, Chi-Yin was on her way to the classroom when she suddenly received a message from Een Ran saying that Xiao Een actually calls his name in her sleep. Chi Een thought awkwardly, what is this stinky teapot so smug about? So she replied, explaining that she was having a nightmare, and told him to stop being so full of himself. At this moment, a girl brushed past Chi Een. After a brief pause, the girl turned back and hooked Chi Yin's bag. Chi Yin turned around in confusion and asked the girl what she wanted. The girl, however, seemed to recognize Chi Yin. The girl grabbed Chi Yin's hand. So it's you. Chi Yin looked completely puzzled. It turned out the girl's name was Bai Yin. Bai Yin explained that although Chi Yin didn't remember her, she had seen Chi Yin many times. Chi Yin then asked where. Bai Yin vaguely touched the bracelet Chi Yin was wearing. The two looked at each other. Chi Yin said she really didn't seem to have any impression and asked Bai Yin which class she was in. The girl touched Chi Yin's bracelet and then said lightly, Sister Chi Yin, your bracelet is so pretty. It feels so fluffy and soft. She then asked Chi Yin where she bought it. Chi Yin awkwardly moved the hand with the bracelet away, saying it was a gift from someone else. She felt that Bai Yin was acting very strange. Bai Yin said oh thoughtfully, so she quickly apologized to Chi Yin for her earlier forwardness. Then she continued to ask enthusiastically if Chi Yin was going back to her classroom, and asked if Chi Yin was very familiar with the school and had been everywhere. Chi Yin asked Bai Yin in confusion if she was a new transfer student or if they had met somewhere else before. Bai Yin, however, used the excuse that these things weren't important and didn't explain much, only saying that she was a problem student who liked to skip class, so it was normal that they hadn't seen each other much. Chi Yin looked at Bai Yin with a shocked expression and asked if she was going to skip class today too. Bai Yin denied it and explained that she was looking for someone today. She didn't know many people at school and was surprised to run into Chi Yin. Chi Yin tried to get out of it, saying she didn't know many people either. Why not ask a teacher? Bai Yin then said the person she was looking for hadn't been here long, but was very handsome and would probably become a hot topic at school soon. The reason was that his hair color was very rare, silver blue. Bai Yin continued to describe the person she was looking for. His eyes were the most beautiful she had ever seen, and his eyelashes were super long. Hearing her mention silver blue hair, Chi Yin seemed to think of someone. Seeing that Chi Yin didn't say anything, Bai Yin asked her if she also knew the person she was looking for. On the other side, Xiao Sun was moving boxes. Een Ran came over and kicked the box, telling Xiao Sun to move the rest. Xiao Sun told Een Ran to get his fox hooves away. Een Ran angrily asked Xiao Sun what he was saying. Then he teased Xiao Sun, "You're not this black-hearted in front of Chi Yin, are you?" Then he expressed suspicion about the secret Xiao Sun mentioned. Just then, Een Ran heard Chi Yin calling him and quickly answered. Unexpectedly, he had misheard. The one calling him was not Chi Yin, but Bai Yin. Een Ran wondered why Bai Yin was here. Just then, Bai Yin threw herself into Een Ran's arms, calling out Fox brother. In her carelessness, Een Ran knocked over the box behind him. Chi Yin stood to the side, watching the scene that had just unfolded. At this moment, Een Ran raised his hand to avoid Bai Yin and asked what she was doing. Only then did Bai Yin realize that she had been a bit too excited just now. Een Ran walked straight past Bai Yin. It turned out he had come to Chi Yin's side and taken her hand. He looked down at Chi Yin and said he had only been gone for a little while, and she couldn't wait to come find Een Ran. He thought to himself, so Xiao Yin cares about me this much. Chi Yin was speechless, thinking Een Ran was really full of himself. Een Ran glanced back at Bai Yin and asked who this was. Chi Yin curiously asked Een Ran if he didn't know her. Een Ran's reply was that he had never seen her before. Xiao Sun watched the scene, speechless. Bai Yin then said embarrassedly that she was a bit excited just now and explained that Sister Chi Yin had brought her here. Chi Yin was puzzled. Why did Bai Yin call Een Ran Fox brother just now? Did she know Een Ran was a nine-tailed fox? The atmosphere instantly froze. Bai Yin explained again that it was because brother Een Ran's eyes looked very much like a fox's, so she couldn't help but blurt it out. Then she asked Een Ran if he minded the nickname. Een Ran told Bai Yin with a helpless expression that he wasn't familiar with her. Bai Yin whispered that they would surely get familiar after getting to know each other. Een Ran turned away, saying there was no need for that. Then he picked up the box and asked Xiao Yin if it was okay to just put these in the classroom. Before Chi Yin could react, she just grunted in agreement. Een Ran then said, "Class is about to start. Aren't you leaving?" On the other side, Bai Yin looked at Een Ran, feeling that his attitude toward her was so bad. After a pause, Chi Yin turned back, wanting to say something to Xiao Sun, but was turned around by Een Ran's tail. Chi Yin angrily asked him what he was doing. Een Ran leaned in caringly and told her to watch where she was going. Bai Yin watched all of this, thinking resentfully that sooner or later, Een Ran would come looking for her. At this moment, the class bell rang. Bai Yin thought, what an annoying place, and an annoying bell. Then she turned to leave. Xiao Sun reminded Bai Yin that this was the opposite direction of the classroom. Bai Yin didn't stop. Xiao Sun asked again, "Aren't you going to class, classmate?" Bai Yin scratched her head, saying awkwardly that she was new and didn't know the way very well. Bai Yin patted Xiao Sun's shoulder and waved. She expressed her thanks and prepared to leave. Xiao Sun watched Bai Yin leave and fell silent. He was lost in thought, and Bai Yin was also thinking to herself, he probably didn't see through me, right? In the classroom hallway, Chi Yin was lying on a desk by herself. Her fingers were drawing circles out of boredom, looking at a certain someone who happened to be sleeping nearby. Bai Yin didn't know why she was called here at this time. Looking curiously at the girl who came in, Bai Yin made a shushing gesture, not to wake up Ain Ran, who was sleeping on the side. She directly asked Chi Yin what her relationship with Ain Ran was. This stunned the heroine. She naturally had to deny it quickly. There was no relationship at all, but this one hand seemed to prove something. Chi Yin then asked Bai Yin why she was asking this. Hearing that there was no relationship, Bai Yin said this with a smile. This also left Chi Yin not knowing what to ask. They seemed to know each other. Before Chi Yin could speak, the girl said she liked Ain Ran. What was Chi Yin supposed to do about this? Bai Yin said seriously that she had liked Ain Ran for a long time and came here for Ain Ran. Hearing these words, Chi Yin didn't know what to think. In the end, Chi Yin sat up and said that wasn't what she was asking. But what should she ask? Recalling her intimate behavior with Ain Ran and how much she liked Ain Ran, she turned her head but didn't know what to say. What was going on? Chi Yin tightened her arms. Actually, I didn't want to ask anything. You shouldn't be telling me these things. You should tell Ain Ran directly. A student came to call Chi Yin, saying the teacher was looking for her. She immediately got up to leave the classroom. Bai Yin watched her slowly walk out of the classroom. Ain Ran also woke up and asked Bai Yin if she did it on purpose. This was heard by Chi Yin, who hadn't gone far. She stopped and looked back. The two of them immediately started talking. Chi Yin was walking down the road, holding her books. Thinking of Bai Yin telling her that she liked Ain Ran, she was lost in thought for a moment. She accidentally bumped into the person in front of her, and her books fell to the ground. A hand helped her pick up the fallen books, asking her why she was spacing out while walking. Chi Yin looked up and saw it was Xiao Sun. Chi Yin said embarrassedly that she wasn't paying attention just now, and asked Xiao Sun if he had finished moving all the things from before. Xiao Sun grunted in agreement, then asked Chi Yin if that girl from before had looked for her. Chi Yin asked if he meant Bai Yin. Xiao Sun then said that the person Bai Yin was looking for should be Ain Ran. Chi Yin continued to ask if Xiao Sun knew Bai Yin and if he had seen her at school. Xiao Sun replied that he was just asking casually and hadn't paid attention. Then he said caringly that he felt Chi Yin had been acting strange lately and asked if anything was wrong. Chi Yin explained that it was the same as always, no need to worry. Xiao Sun continued to say caringly that class was about to start and told Chi Yin to take these things to the classroom first. Chi Yin turned to say goodbye to Xiao Sun and headed to the classroom. On the way to the classroom, Chi Yin thought to herself, I can't even walk straight. What am I thinking about? Xiao Sun, on the other hand, thought that Bai Yin couldn't possibly be a student here. There was no such person in the school. But if she was here to find Ain Ran, why was she revolving around Chi Yin? Chi Yin sat alone on the steps. She picked up her phone and saw a message from Ain Ran asking where she was. Chi Yin said she was at home. Ain Ran then said, why so early today? I'm heading back first. Just as Chi Yin was about to type a reply, the stinky fox suddenly made a video call. She casually hung up and continued to send a text message. While she was editing the message, Ain Ran sat down next to her, looked down, and asked Chi Yin, are you at home? Chi Yin was startled and turned her head to ask Ain Ran why he suddenly appeared. At this moment, Ain Ran stared affectionately at Chi Yin. The two were suddenly so close they could almost hear each other's pounding heartbeats. Chi Yin quickly turned her head away and asked Ain Ran why he suddenly appeared, saying he scared her to death. At this moment, Chi Yin stood there, stunned and at a loss. But Ain Ran said it was a pity. Then he continued, saying it seemed like they almost kissed just now. Chi Yin asked irritably what he was talking about. This is a school. Ain Ran sat down next to Chi Yin and asked her if she knew who the old acquaintance he mentioned was. Chi Yin looked puzzled. She said how would she know, then asked Ain Ran why he was suddenly telling her these things. The image of Bai Yin going to the classroom to find Ain Ran suddenly appeared in her mind. She wanted to ask Ain Ran about the class bell, but she suddenly remembered Ain Ran picking up on Chi Yin's words, wanting to know what she was going to ask. But Chi Yin's phone received a message. Ain Ran was annoyed and asked who was sending messages at this time. Chi Yin stood up, saying it was getting late and she had to go home. Ain Ran watched Chi Yin prepare to leave, but she seemed to pause for a moment. It turned out Chi Yin wanted to ask if he wasn't going home. Ain Ran responded with a grunt. Chi Yin then turned back and said to Ain Ran, then what are you waiting for? Let's go. Ain Ran happily said, oh. He stood up and said to Xiao Yin This seems to be the first time the two of them are going home together after school. Chi-in thought he was too talkative and asked if he would be fine sleeping on the streets. Ain Rand retorted, "How could it be considered sleeping on the streets when I'm with Xiao-in?" It was another quiet night. Chi-in was lying in bed, constantly replying to messages on her phone when she heard a knock on the door. It was Ain Rand. He asked Xiao-in if she had seen his tail conditioning lotion. Chi-in opened the door and told Ain Rand that he had put it away himself and she hadn't touched it. Before Chi-in could react, Ain Rand walked straight into her room. Ain Rand said pitifully, "Xiao-in is so cruel. You didn't even say a word to me when you got home. Can't I even come look for something?" Chi-in watched him sit down and asked if this was how he looked for things. Could he please put on his pajamas properly before talking? Just then, Chi-in's phone chimed with a new message. Ain Rand felt that Chi-in's phone had been ringing nonstop all day and was curious who she was messaging. Chi-in told Ain Rand she wasn't as idle as him and told him to hurry up and find his conditioning lotion. Just then, with a click, the room was plunged into darkness. Chi-in asked what was going on, why the lights suddenly went out. She was thinking it might be a power outage, but on second thought, that wasn't right. The sound of the switch just now must have been the stinky fox. Just then, she felt a fluffy mass surrounding her. Chi-in asked Ain Rand what he was doing, why it was suddenly so dark she couldn't see anything. Ain Rand then told Chi-in that she still hadn't answered what he said during the day. So Ain Rand wanted to stay with Chi-in a little longer to confirm who the old acquaintance he mentioned was. Chi-in's hands, body, and the area around her ears couldn't stand being touched by Ain Rand's fox fur. She told him to stop for a moment. After her eyes adjusted to the darkness, Chi-in seemed to be able to vaguely see the fluffy white fox tails. Ain Rand then asked Chi-in if he didn't cling to her, would she just avoid him again? Chi-in was stunned for a moment. It turned out Ain Rand wanted to know if she was having the same dream as him. Chi-in suddenly felt that the stinky fox's breath was a bit shaky. Ain Rand then asked Chi-in if, besides not knowing, she had nothing else she wanted to ask. Chi-in froze, thinking about the question she wanted to ask. What did Ain Rand and Bai-yin talk about? She wondered if the old acquaintance Ain Rand mentioned could be her. She used to have nightmares about a fox, but not recently. And the fox in her dreams had turned into Ain Rand. This feeling was so strange, she couldn't bring herself to ask. Thinking about how the stinky fox always wrapped his tail around her and said inexplicable things, she couldn't tell if his words were sincere or not. Then she looked up at Ain Rand, thinking that if she cared so much, wouldn't she be falling into his trap? But thinking about his gaze recently, it no longer seemed as flirtatious as when they first met. Just as she was thinking, Ain Rand told Chi-in that the old acquaintance once told him, "Don't be afraid." Chi-in paused for a moment. Then Ain Rand walked closer to Chi-in, continuing, "He came to save Chi-in." Ain Rand continued, "The person in the dream said he would stay with him, that he would always be there." At this point, Chi-in called out his name, wanting to say something. Ain Rand continued, "I clearly can't remember his appearance, but I always feel that he is very similar to Chi-in." Chi-in looked at Ain Rand before her, moved, and at a loss. At this moment, Ain Rand wrapped his tail around Chi-in again. Chi-in felt Ain Rand's breath and body were too close. Ain Rand continued, "That old acquaintance is also a benefactor to me." And Ain Rand only just realized his own admiration for him. Chi-in's face was already bright red, having no idea what he was talking about. Ain Rand cupped Chi-in's blushing cheeks with his hands and continued, "Back then, it was also pitch black like this. He took the initiative to bandage my wounds, held and caressed me all night, and even talked to me." Chi-in didn't understand why Ain Rand was telling her these things. Even though Ain Rand was talking about him, her own heart was beating uncontrollably, as if it was about to jump out. Ain Rand lowered his head and gently held Chi-in's face. He then asked Chi-in, "Do you really not remember anything?" Chi-in thought Ain Rand was up to some trick again and didn't believe his words. She thought, this stinky fox is just like usual, enjoying teasing me, playing a cruel joke on me. But some fragmented memories really did surface in her mind. It was always at night, always seeming to be doing the same thing to the same person. At this moment, Chi-in lowered her head, unable to speak. Then she said hastily, "I can't remember." "I remember." Ain Rand comforted Chi-in, saying he was willing to wait for her to remember slowly. Chi-in froze at a loss. She thought, what is Ain Rand doing? His expression was so solemn just now. Why is he suddenly smiling? Then she asked Ain Rand what he meant. Just because she looked like that old acquaintance, did she have to respond? At this moment, Ain Rand gently rested his head on Chi-Yin's shoulder. Chi-Yin wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Yin Ran. He explained for Chi-Yin, "I knew you blush when you lie, but I didn't know my benefactor would blush this much." And he praised Chi-Yin for being too cute to look at for too long, otherwise he wouldn't be able to resist kissing her. Chi-Yin thought, "Is my face really that red?" Yin Ran cornered Chi-Yin. Chi-Yin tried hard to push him away, using the excuse that what Yin Ran was looking for wasn't here, wanting him to let her go. Chi-Yin said she was going to rest. Yin Ran then said gently to Chi-Yin, "Xiao-Yin, you don't have to be so nervous. It's okay." Then he pointed to his own blushing face for Chi-Yin to see, comforting her that he, like her, also blushes. Chi-Yin was too shy to speak. Seeing this, Yin Ran let go of Chi-Yin, explaining that it was late and he shouldn't disturb her rest. He said, "See you tomorrow. Have a good dream," to Xiao-Yin, then turned to leave. Only after hearing the door close did Chi-Yin breathe a sigh of relief. Standing by the computer in her room, her heart couldn't calm down for a long time. Chi-Yin looked towards the door, feeling it was very strange. Why would I have that kind of memory? Could it be that the old acquaintance the stinky fox mentioned is really related to me? Thinking about what Yin Ran said to her just now, I clearly can't remember his appearance. I can't remember, but Yin Ran always felt he was very similar to her, and that he admired him. Thinking about these things, Chi-Yin couldn't help but wonder what the person who looked so much like her actually looked like. A woman was throwing stones into the water, thinking, didn't they say the demon pearl was around here? It's already midnight. Should I keep looking? Suddenly, she seemed to hear a sound. She pushed aside the weeds in front of her. The woman actually saw a fox with 9 tails, lying on the ground and trembling. The woman felt the aura of the demon pearl. She thought, could it be that this fox swallowed the demon pearl? If it really swallowed it, it would surely die. She thought that she was only ordered to find a demon pearl. How could it have been swallowed by a small animal? Looking at the fox wailing in pain, the woman thought, can I only get the demon pearl from its stomach by killing it? At this moment, the fox opened its eyes, trembling. The woman held the fox's face and saw its blue eyes, thinking, he looks so similar. It can't be such a coincidence, can it? Just then, the 9-tailed fox actually turned and ran away. The woman thought, does it know that I'm a threat to its life and want to take out the demon pearl inside it? So she decided to follow it. At this moment, the fox could no longer run and collapsed to the ground with a thud. Another small fox heard the sound. Seeing its companion collapsed in the distance, it went forward and sniffed. Then it let out a long howl. Just then, it seemed to notice some movement in the woods, and the fox lying on the ground was emitting a demonic aura. At this moment, the clouds were about to cover the moon. The woman muttered to herself, how did it run so fast? She looked up and saw that the moon was gone and the forest was so dark. The demon pearl hasn't been found yet. I can't report back like this. So she sat down under a large tree, thinking that it would be dawn in a few hours. It probably didn't run far. I can only look for it again at dawn. The woman yawned, wondering how that fox was doing now. It must be very uncomfortable after swallowing the demon pearl. As she thought, the woman fell asleep. Then she actually dreamed that she was sinking into deep water. While struggling desperately, she shouted for help. Suddenly, a tail once again pulled her into the water. Just as she felt she was about to suffocate, she suddenly opened her eyes and saw a fox looking at her. The woman thought, I just fell off a cliff. It really hurts. Luckily, the herbs are still here. She breathed a sigh of relief. The fox wagged its tail, looking at the injured woman. The woman opened her eyes, thinking, he just saved me. The woman wanted to touch the fox, but the fox quickly backed away. Then it picked up some herbs and ran deep into the forest. The woman watched the fox run away with the herbs, thinking, did it save me because of the herbs? At this moment, the wind in the forest made the trees rustle loudly. The woman suddenly woke up. She seemed to hear some movement, thinking, what's happening over there? So she went closer to take a look. Suddenly, the woman saw something and froze. It was a group of injured foxes lying on the ground. They didn't seem to have serious external injuries, but there were bloodstains everywhere. The woman seemed to think of something in her heart. She turned around and saw a fox with 9 tails kneeling on the ground. The 9-tailed fox looked at the woman in confusion and asked who she was. However, they didn't seem to have met. He lowered himself and reached out his hand, recalling that the blood trail disappeared here. If those few foxes died because of the demon pearl, should Chi-Yin report this situation to the gods? I'll wait until dawn to search this forest again. She was sleeping quietly when suddenly a voice said, today's harvest is truly great. Chi-Yin turned her head to look. We couldn't catch them before, no matter how hard he tried. I don't know which deity sent us this great gift. 2 hunters were holding dead foxes. This was truly effortless. We can sell them for a good price. She looked at the foxes in the 2 men's hands and seemed to realize something. She immediately appeared in front of the two hunters, calling out to them. Chi-in wanted the two hunters to let her see the foxes in the sack. The hunter carrying the sack said, "Where did this little girl come from? There's no share for you here." He then took out a dead fox in front of Chi-in. "They're all dead. I'm afraid of scaring you." She wasn't afraid. "Just let me take a look. The foxes in that sack, you usually can't catch them. You dare to catch them even when they died so strangely." The hunter immediately became agitated. "None of your business. Whoever gets them, keeps them. You wild girl, are you trying to rob us?" Just then, Chi-in waved her small hand and a leaf flew out. With a rip, it immediately tore the bag open. Dead foxes all fell out of the bag. The girl was also startled by so many foxes, but the one she was looking for wasn't among them. Seeing this scene, the two men immediately started cursing. "You broke my only sack. You wench, just you wait." Before he could finish his sentence, the girl disappeared. The bloodstains at the previous location had dried up. The foxes those hunters caught were far more than the ones from last night. Did something happen later? "Catch him. Ouch." The sound came from beside her. Chi-in looked over. The two hunters had fallen to the ground. What kind of monster was that? It had so many tails and was covered in blood. The two men then shared their thoughts. Those foxes were probably killed by that monster. And I was also suspecting, was it that nine-tailed fox? Is he still alive? I turned and left this place. The two hunters also prepared to pack up the dead foxes and leave. This is the right direction. Chi-in walked over this way. But why is it getting more and more desolate the further I walk? Looking at the blood-stained place in front of her, Chi-in recalled what the two hunters had just said. So many tails, covered in blood. I clenched my fists. The demon pearl seems to have already affected him. Hesitantly, I reached out my hand. Should I kill him and take out the demon core? When I opened this white cloth, it was a man covered in blood. He slowly collapsed on my shoulder. Chi-in was surprised. How could it be a person? She tried to wake the man up. The man had a strong smell of blood and was muttering something. One hand was floating above the ground. The man struggled to say, "I didn't mean to." Afterward, Chi-in held the herbs, wondering if it was enough. After the demon pearl acts up, will his appearance be different from now? Will he become irritable and go mad? Looking at him now, he doesn't seem fierce at all. She came behind the man to apply the medicine, but his hair was in the way. Chi-in pushed aside the man's long hair, but she was stunned by the scene. A shocking wound appeared before her eyes. She recalled the scene from just now. He had said he didn't mean to. What on earth happened last night? "I know you didn't mean to, so bear the pain a little longer. The wound will heal." I slowly bandaged his wound. The cold wind blew, making me shiver. But when I touched his body, was it because of the fox tails providing warmth or because of the demon pearl? His skin temperature was always warm. Finally, I tied the knot on the cloth and looked up at the man before me. His expression really resembles the one from my childhood. I wonder if his eyes will be the same when he opens them. Just as I finished speaking, the man's eyes fluttered open. The two of them looked at each other, and this gaze was exactly the same as the one I encountered in my childhood. The man, however, asked, "Who are you?" Chi-in smiled and said, "You're awake." After saying that, I woke up with a start and went downstairs. Footsteps were heard, and Ayn Rand happened to be in the living room. Ayn Rand turned around and greeted me. I directly lifted Ayn Rand's shirt, wanting to check the wound on his back, but there was nothing on his back. Ayn Rand looked at me with a puzzled expression. Chi-in, blushing, lowered Ayn Rand's shirt. Ayn Rand also asked what wound. "I don't have any wounds on my body." I continued to blush and averted my gaze. But Ayn Rand directly lifted the front of his shirt, smiling and saying, "Do you only need to check the back?" Chi-in's face became even redder. He then asked me, "Why is your expression so tense? Did you have a nightmare again?" He clearly can't remember his appearance. Can't remember. But I always feel that he is very similar to you. I admire him. Ayn Rand looked down at Chi-in. "It seems I dreamed of him." Chi-in shyly lowered her head and asked, "The old acquaintance you mentioned." Ayn Rand reached out and covered my face, asking, "Was he wearing a veil like this?" I slapped Ayn Rand's hand away. "Don't you know what he looks like?" "Why are you asking me?" He said with a smile. "For some reason, I can't remember what happened during that time. If Xiaoyin dreamed about it, why don't you tell me?" I turned around that if you can't remember and don't know what he looks like, then why do you say I look like him? Why did you confess to me and ask me about your past? Chi-in gripped her cup tightly. What on earth is this stinky fox trying to do? Ayn Rand turned his head, reached out his hand towards Chi-in. "That aren't you curious? Why can you dream about these things? Why must you think that old acquaintance is someone else? My benefactor." Ayn Rand touched my hand. "It has only ever been you." Ayn Rand kissed my hand. Chi-in's face was shy, but different images flashed through your mind. Chi-in abruptly pulled her hand back. What are you doing? Why are you suddenly kissing my hand?" She punched Ayn Rand fiercely. "Stinky fox, are you itching for a beating?" but he still asked with a smile, "Didn't you dream of anything else in your dream?" I remember our relationship could be more intimate. Sheen immediately explained, "What nonsense are you talking about? What kind of dream do you think I had? It's just what?" He moved closer to Een Ran, and at this moment, I stared at the man in front of me. The stinky fox is so cheeky, but in the dream, he was so well-behaved. Then I received, "He is cuter than you." Een Ran asked curiously, "Who are you talking about?" And my lips curved up slightly, the fox in the dream. He looks so harmless, so gentle and cute. It makes you want to protect him. And you, I pointed at Een Ran and said, "are not as cute as him." "What are you talking about?" Een Ran was not convinced. The "he" you're pointing at is me, isn't it? I crossed my arms. He doesn't talk as much as you do. "Oh, so Xiao Een likes the quiet and cute type," Een Ran said with a smile. Een puffed up her cheeks. "Why do you relate everything to like? How can you be so presumptuous?" Een Ran called out affectionately, "Benefactor." This made my face freeze again, recalling the fox from last night's dream. But he said, "Benefactor, you're blushing." "I'm not." Een slapped Een Ran's hand away. "I haven't put away my books from last night move." Then Een hurriedly fled from there. And Een Ran, watching my reaction, just called out casually, "Does she really like the cute type? She blushes so quickly." At this point, Een Ran began to have doubts. The one she dreamed of is really me, right? It couldn't be another fox, could it? I hid behind the door, hugging myself. Why is it that now, when I see the stinky fox's face, strange memories always surface in my mind? They are exactly the same as the scenes I dreamed of. Even though it's just a dream, it always feels as if it really happened that, oh, so Xiao Een likes the quiet and cute type. The scene from just now surfaced in my mind. After a while, I got over it. He's just a fox. What's there to like? It was just a dream. No need to keep thinking about it. However, that scene, yeah, will you come again tomorrow? I woke up with a start. It turns out I was dreaming again. Just as I came to my senses, a small note was passed to me. It read, "Sleeping during study hall. Aren't you afraid you'll talk in your sleep and call out my name like last time?" This was extremely awkward. Who would call out your name every time they dream? The stinky fox remembers what happened before so clearly, and he was obviously sleeping himself. Only when the stinky fox is sleeping does he look different from usual. Een Ran's lips softly called out, "Benefactor." I recalled the scene from the dream. "Why are you taking care of me so thoughtfully?" Een Ran held my hand. "Your hand is injured. It's from gathering herbs." "Benefactor, thank you, benefactor. I hope I can see you again tomorrow." Shi Ying's face grew redder and redder. These fragmented images kept flashing in my mind. Don't move. Doesn't the wound hurt? Benefactor, with your concern, it doesn't hurt. In the dream, it was as if Een Ran woke up at this moment and looked at me. What is Xiao Een thinking? And in the dream, it seemed like Shi Ying liked Een Ran. "What are you doing?" Een Ran sat up, and I happened to lie down on my desk. No matter how Een Ran called me, I just pretended not to hear. "You're ignoring me. I'm so bored." Een Ran propped up his head. "I'm going out in a bit. Not staying here anymore." Shi Ying moved a little, but showed no intention of getting up. Een Ran stood up and stopped by my desk. He lowered his head and said softly, "Benefactor, see you at home." Then he left, yawning. He muttered as he swaggered off, "This weather really makes one sleepy." A certain person slowly lifted her head. "Sleepy my foot. He must have done on purpose. He's already talkative, but today he kept finding things to talk to me about." Images of Een Ran kept appearing, and I don't want him to see me like this. If he saw me, he would say again, "Benefactor." Seeing me blush again, "Have you fallen for me?" Liking him is a feeling from the dream, not reality. Suddenly, a beautiful woman shouted, "What are you doing? Where did you pop out from?" Shi Ying was also startled. I just came from Een Ran's place." My mood instantly dropped. "So he just went to see you?" "No," she immediately explained. "I just want to find him. I wanted to drag him out to have fun, but he ignored me and left. There was something important I wanted to say, but I never got the chance." Early this morning, the little boy with yellow hair came to Brother Ran's house. "Brother Ran, long time no see." "Brother Ran, it's this blue-haired kid." After Brother Ran sat down, he began to tease him, "You're living a much more leisurely life than me." The yellow-haired boy leaned closer to Brother Ran and said, "How's the private school over there been for you recently? You should come over here to hang out more often." Brother Ran lowered his head and replied, saying that he was doing very well, and that he happened to have something to ask him. "Have you found anything on that person I asked you to look into?" After hearing this, the yellow-haired boy took out a piece of paper and began to explain that I found him. "His name is Xiao Sun. He is indeed not human. This pretty young lady in front of me is called Shi Ying. Everyone calls her Sister Shering. Just as Miss Shering was enjoying the view, a young lady with pink hair from behind started to greet her. Shering walked over and asked her with confusion, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so nervous?" The young lady took out 2 VIP tickets, saying she had a hard time getting them. She wanted to ask Shering to invite Ain Rand out. Only then did Shering understand the young lady's meaning. It turned out she wanted to invite the stinky fox to the amusement park. The young lady began to explain, "I think there's a misunderstanding between Ain Rand and me. He's ignoring me, and I have something very important to tell him." After some thought, Sister Shering decided to help her. But she also warned her, "What I say might not necessarily work, so I'm just passing on the message." Just as the two were about to set off, Ain Rand suddenly appeared from the side and snatched the tickets from their hands. The young lady's spirits lifted instantly. Well now, there's no need to ask someone to invite him. He came on his own. But the outcome was not what she wished for. Ain Rand threw the 2 tickets back in her hand, saying, "I've never been to this place, and I'm not interested. Also, you don't need to pass any messages to me." The young lady hurriedly stopped him and said, "These tickets were really hard to get. What's more, I have something very important to say." Hearing this, Miss Shering started to say to the 2 of them, "I happen to have something to do, so I'll be leaving." Just as Shering was about to leave, the young lady held her wrist, saying that if Ain Rand didn't have time, then she would have to invite Miss Shering to go with her instead. As soon as she finished speaking, a man with glasses walked out from behind them and said, "Shering invited me to dinner this weekend. She probably doesn't have time, right?" This really pissed off the pink-haired young lady. Damn it, where did he pop out from? The scene of 2 men confronting each other is truly rare, especially 2 handsome men. A helpless Shering had no choice but to tell the young lady beside her, "Don't waste the tickets. Bai Yin, you can find someone else to go with." After Shering left, Ain Rand began to tease the 2, "Seeing as you both have time, why don't you 2 go together?" Meanwhile, Sister Shering, who had left, was still thinking about what just happened. She felt that whenever she ran into Bai Yin, some hard-to-understand coincidences would always occur. Xiao Sun, the man with glasses, interrupted Bai Yin and me earlier. It also seemed like he didn't want me to agree. As she was thinking, Sister Shiying's phone suddenly rang. She picked it up to check. It was Lao Wen. Could it be that Lao Wen is coming back? Lost in thought, she arrived at the school's package station. It turned out to be a package sent to her by Lao Wen. The old man at the gate took out a bottle of AD calcium milk and gave it to Shiying, telling her there were still 1 or 2 boxes left and that she should come here to get them every day. After leaving, Shiying opened a bottle and started drinking. This made her think it's still the same familiar taste. I still remember that every time before Lao Wen came back, he would send me a big pile of things. I would look forward to skiing with Lao Wen. Just as she was enjoying her drink, a figure walked over. It was Ain Rand. After talking for a bit, they went home together. After returning home, Shiying lay down directly on the sofa. Ain Rand walked up behind Shiying and said, "You still haven't answered what I just asked you." It turned out that before they went home, when they met, Ain Rand had asked her, "Are you planning to persuade me to go to the amusement park with Bai Yin? How would you persuade me?" Shiying said, "Didn't you already refuse? Why do you keep asking?" But Ain Rand was relentless. "Oh, you're saying if I hadn't refused, you would have persuaded me to go." Shiying turned her head to the side and said she just wanted to help pass on the message and didn't want to persuade him. Just as the 2 were chatting happily, Shiying's phone rang. It was Bai Yin wanting to add her as a friend. After accepting, Bai Yin sent several messages, trying to coax and pester Shiying into going to the amusement park with her. Ain Rand, who was beside her, grew a little impatient upon seeing this. She's not going to give up until she finds someone to go with. Why don't you just agree? But Shiying thought, she was originally looking for you. Why should I go? Ain Rand teased her. You're not really going to have dinner with Xiao Sun, are you? He was obviously just saying that on the spot. His goal was to stop you from going with Bai Yin. Ain Rand's words piqued Shiying's interest. Shiying turned her head to look at Ain Rand and asked him, "Do you know what Bai Yin wants to tell you?" Ain Rand saw through her and said, "I don't know, but you seem to care a lot." This left Shiying unable to answer. But the very important thing Bai Yin mentioned was actually that she wanted to confess her feelings to Ain Rand. Suddenly, Ain Rand leaned his head in again and said, "You know, right? Who I like." Seeing that the situation was not right, Shiying hurriedly changed the subject. Right, you like that person. Why bring this up all of a sudden?" Ain Rand said, "So why is it that every time this topic is mentioned, every time that person is mentioned, Shiying blushes?" Unable to hold on any longer, Miss Shiying hurriedly fled. If she stayed any longer, things would get too serious. After Shiying left, she sent a WeChat message to Ain Rand. "I've agreed to go with Bai Yin. Are you really going to?" How could Ain Rand let such a great opportunity slip by? Ain Rand said he was going, and he definitely had to go. When the weekend came, Shiying changed her clothes and prepared to go out. She sent a message to Ain Rand and Bai Yin. But right after she sent the message to this guy, he suddenly appeared. Good grief, a stalker. After arriving at the amusement park, she also successfully met up with Bai Yin. Bai Yin greeted Shiring. Sister Shiring, I've been waiting for you for a long time. After the two met, Een Ran hid in a coffee shop in the amusement park, supervising the two of them. At this moment, Een Ran seemed to hear a familiar voice from behind him. As soon as the two entered the amusement park, they came to the pirate ship. Shiring was speechless. We're riding this as soon as we get in. Bai Yin said, this is great. There's no need to queue, and we can ride it over and over. Een Ran told Xiao Sun behind him. Xiao Een is afraid of heights. I'll sit behind her later. Xiao Sun glared at him and said, why didn't you persuade her not to come? What if she gets hurt? Een Ran retorted directly, should I have let her go to dinner with you instead? With me here, there won't be any problems. Haha. After the two got on, Bai Yin had a great time. Shiring was not so happy. However, those two didn't even get on. Xiao Sun teased Een Ran. I thought the nine-tailed fox was so capable. You can't even get on. What were you boasting about just now? Is Brother Ran the type to be bullied? Absolutely not letting others get a word in. He directly revealed Xiao Sun's identity. A confused Xiao Sun wanted to ask Een Ran, but Een Ran told him the two of them had come down. After playing for a while, Bai Yin started to thank Shiring. Thanks to Sister Shiring for playing several rides with me. I wouldn't dare to play them alone. Ha ha ha. Shiring was completely bewildered. Forget about those, but why are you even playing the fishing game? I hate fishing the most. Hearing Shi Ying's words, Bai Yin silently lowered her head and said, I've been to very few places. This is my first time at an amusement park. I wish I could come every day. Women are always like this. Sad for 1 second, and the next she's pulling Shiring to go boating. Xiao Sun, who had been following them all day, suddenly realized, damn, where did they go? Crap, I think I lost them. It was up to Een Ran. He directly took out his phone to contact Shiring. Actually, his nine-tailed fox clan can sense things with their tails. Brother Ran followed the WeChat directions and arrived here. But the sensation from his foxtail told him that Shiring was not here at all. Sure enough, a hand suddenly reached out from behind and grabbed him. It was Bai Yin. It turned out that before this, Bai Yin had asked Shiring, Sister Shiring, did Een Ran follow us? Shiring stammered in response. Did you see him? Hearing this, Bai Yin laughed. My intuition is really sharp. It seems fate has decided that today is the day. I have to express my feelings to him. Then, Bai Yin borrowed Shiring's phone. But after Bai Yin left, only Shiring was left, sitting alone on the sofa, looking at the phone in her hand. At this moment, Xiao Sun walked over, asking her why she was sitting here. This startled Shiring a little. Xiao Sun said he was just passing by, but that probably wasn't a very convincing explanation. After some thought, Shiring began to ask Xiao Sun, do you know Bai Yin? But judging from his reaction, he probably didn't. Shiring always had a feeling that the two of them should know each other. Could it be her imagination? Xiao Sun replied to her, actually, I feel that Bai Yin doesn't seem friendly. I was worried about you, so I came. For some reason, a sentence suddenly popped out of Shi Ying's mouth. Bai Yin said you're not human. Does she owe him money? This completely confused Xiao Sun. What is she talking about? It's not just you who's speechless. I'm speechless too. At this moment, Shi Ying said again, Xiao Sun, you know Bai Yin, don't you? Or rather, you know her identity, and that's why you're doing this, isn't it? Coming to find me specifically. A helpless Xiao Sun sat down and began to explain. He thought Bai Yin was very strange, and he didn't know what she was trying to do. It was just because her intentions were so strong that he was worried about her safety, just like when Een Ran was by her side in the beginning. Shiring was very confused. She didn't think Bai Yin could do anything to her. But Xiao Sun still brought up Een, R-A-N.D. Oh, you remember what Een Ran calls you? He always calls you benefactor, right? Shiring was even more puzzled. How would you know something like that? Xiao Sun lowered his head and began to tell her, perhaps that benefactor is something he should have called you long ago. Actually, Xiao Sun never wanted to tell Shiring, but Bai Yin was right. Shi Ying's intuition about things being strange and awkward was correct. Of course, she also knew Een Ran wasn't human. Similarly, Xiao Sun is not human either. It turns out that when they were children, Shi Ying and Wen Shu went skiing together. Along the way, they saved a bird. That bird is today's Xiao Sun. This is just ridiculously absurd. Utterly and completely absurd. Hearing what Xiao Sun said, Shi Ying remembered. Good grief, you've kept this a secret until now. Xiao Sun thought Shi Ying would be a little surprised after finding out, but it seemed he was disappointed. Shi Ying was a little curious, if that's the case. Then do Een Ran and Bai Yin also know your identity? Xiao Sun said that he had only told this to her, and he wasn't sure about the others. Hearing what Xiao Sun said, Shering began to seriously wonder what on earth Bai Yin was up to. At the same time, the tricked Ain Ran was led by Bai Yin to a remote corner. After they stopped, Bai Yan's emotions were a little stirred. You felt it too, didn't you, Ain Ran? Otherwise, you wouldn't have been deliberately avoiding me. This is your nine-tailed fox aura. Hearing this, Ain Ran frowned. How does she know my identity? Then Bai Yin stretched out her hand and said, she's sure. That bracelet should be on my hand, shouldn't it? Bai Yin said that she was the one who first found the nine-tailed fox's tail segment. On Shi Ying's side, Xiao Sun began to tell Shi Ying about Bai Yin. About Bai Yin, I think the reason she's inexplicably following you is not just for Ain Ran, but possibly related to your bracelet. You started wearing that bracelet ever since you met Ain Ran, right? She circles around you with an unclear purpose, but her eyes often glance at your right wrist. Xiao Sun's words made Shi Ying remember. It really was true. Indeed, every time she met her, she would try to touch her bracelet. This also made Shi Ying very confused. What does this bracelet have to do with her? While she was pondering, Shi Ying suddenly noticed something strange about the bracelet in her hand. This an illusion. The bracelet is starting to turn purple. What happened to them? Shi Ying clearly remembered that she had only seen this color once. It was the night the stinky fox first moved into her house. After that, Shi Ying had never seen this bracelet turn pink again. Xiao Sun looked at the confused Shi Ying and asked her, do you care about that a lot? This question made Shi Ying feel awkward. Shi Ying hurriedly explained to him and then said she wanted to treat him to a meal. Xiao Sun was overjoyed. He had originally just been joking about having a meal today, but he didn't expect it to actually happen. Shi Ying was also very happy. She didn't even know they had met so long ago. Shi Ying then asked him if he knew any magic. Xiao Sun laughed after hearing this and replied, I haven't used it in a long time. It's not needed here anyway. As the two were talking, it suddenly started to rain outside. Seeing this, Shi Ying silently lowered her head, so much so that she didn't even hear what Xiao Sun was saying to her. After coming back to her senses, Shi Ying hurriedly apologized that I'm sorry. I was a bit distracted just now. Xiao Sun smiled and replied, I should be the one thanking you, my little benefactor, for gracing me with this meal. After speaking, Xiao Sun also turned his face to look out the window. He thought that with such heavy rain, maybe they should leave a bit earlier. Shi Ying thought so too, and immediately told Xiao Sun, I'm sorry. I feel like the rain is going to get heavier. I have something urgent to attend to, so I have to go. I'll treat you to a meal next time. After Shi Ying finished speaking, she hurriedly ran off. Xiao Sun stood up and watched Shi Ying's departing figure, still thinking to himself, is she going to find Bai Yin and Ain Ran? Sure enough, Shi Ying really did go to the place where Bai Yin tricked Ain Ran, the carousel in the center of the park. However, when she got there, she found that the two of them were not there at all. At this moment, Shi Ying was already starting to feel jealous inside. The stinky fox says one thing and does another. If he says that, then why did the fox fur turn pink? Is it because of Bai Yan's confession or something else? In her anxiety, Shi Ying hurriedly picked up her phone to send a message to Ain Ran asking where he was. Just as Shi Ying was feeling disappointed, a message suddenly came on her phone. It was a video call from the stinky fox. However, when Shi Ying answered the call, the screen was black and there was no sound. Suddenly, a waiter's voice came from the other end of the call. Sir, are you all right? Would you like another drink? Hearing the voices and music, it sounded a bit like some kind of bar. Shi Ying arrived at the nearest bar. Even with the storm raging outside, the inside was still filled with laughter and cheer. Sure enough, amidst the noisy chatter, Shi Ying found Ain Ran slumped over a table. Shi Ying came to Ain Ran's side. Ain Ran slowly lifted his head and looked at her. You're here. Shi Ying was about to be bewildered. Why is your face so red? Where's Bai Yin? And have you been drinking? Ain Ran didn't answer her question about Bai Yin, but told her that he had indeed been drinking. Thinking of the person I like, drinking the wine I like. At this moment, she noticed the bracelet on her hand had changed color once again. Just as Shi Ying was looking at the bracelet, Ain Ran suddenly grabbed her hand. Ain Ran said to her, Xiao Yin, did you come looking for me because of the fox bracelet? Shi Ying asked him with a slight tremble. Is this bracelet also because you're thinking of the person you like? Ain Ran leaned his face closer and teased her. Benefactor, you care so much about who I like. Haven't I already told you? The person I like is you. After Ain Ran finished speaking, he directly kissed her. Shi Ying was completely stunned. After kissing for a while, Shi Ying remembered to push him away. You must have enjoyed it too. After being pushed away, Een Ran asked her, Xiao Een, do you hate it? I'm already a little dizzy. You can't bully me. And at this moment, Shering already seemed at a loss. Covering her mouth, she questioned him. Who gave you permission to kiss me just now? As soon as she finished speaking, Een Ran revealed his fox ears, wanting Shering to reach out and touch them. Ha ha ha! Before Shering could even touch them, Een Ran fell asleep, resting on her chest. Let's just say this was definitely premeditated. You're gonna sleep on someone's chest? That must be nice. Suddenly, Shering seemed to have thought of something. The stinky fox was clearly so drunk. How come there's no smell of alcohol on him? She then asked the young man at the bar behind her, Hello, may I ask how many drinks this person ordered just now? The young man made a hand gesture. Ha ha ha. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Een Ran. Een Ran murmured, It's been a while since I drank. How'd I get knocked out by just one glass? Only then did Shering realize. Aha, so you were pretending. You weren't even drunk, were you? Een Ran, however, avoided Ying's scolding and instead turned to look at the bartender on the side. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a couple bicker before? After speaking, Een Ran directly lifted Ying and carried her. Ying struggled with all her might, but it seemed to be of no use. After they came out, Ying asked Een Ran, So you didn't drink at all, did you? There's no smell of alcohol on you. Een Ran lowered his head and replied, I drank, but this is drowning my sorrows. How would I dare to deceive my benefactor? I'm just not completely drunk. Ying's gaze was unsteady. She opened her mouth to ask him, What sorrows are you drowning? Weren't you with Bai Yin? Ying's question gave Een Ran an opening. Humph, you abandoned me and tricked me into going to that woman's side. You're only bringing this up now. Ying asked him again what the two of them talked about. But Een Ran told her that Bai Yin supports the two of them being together. As he spoke, he took Ying's hand again. Een Ran said that Bai Yin made him certain of one thing, but that's not important anymore. I originally wanted to take back the tail segment in your hand, but I've changed my mind now. It's a part of my body, and now it's in your hands. So, I belong to you too. Seeing Ying not responding, Een Ran asked again, Xiao Een, haven't you always been concerned about this? I am very sober and very clear. From beginning to end, my eyes have only been on you. At this moment, Ying's heart was also not calm, but she had already accepted it unknowingly. While she was thinking, Een Ran made a gesture to hold her hand. Actually, Ying also wanted to walk into his world. In the end, she finally decided. The fox dream she once hated so much will no longer exist. To be honest, I really like you too.